The Immortal Stranger. Starting as a traveling merchant, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 501. I'll come in person. The Lee family's supernatural powers looked at each other, and none of them said a word. It was obvious that they were quite afraid of the precious mirror in their own blessed land. Even the Phoenix Sword Lee Fueling, who had taken the initiative to take on this task before, had learned his lesson now, keeping silent. Lee Yunzi was not surprised by this. After all, she knew very well what kind of character the Cheyenne treasure mirror was. She was deceived by it at the beginning. Recalling some unbearable scenes in her memory, this dark so unreal person looked at the three absolute sword immortal Li Changlin, who was temporarily in charge of the family affairs. Although he didn't say anything, the meaning was self-evident. Li Changlin was the uncle of the young master Li Yunfeng, the eldest son of the former head of the Li family, Li Fuchen, and one of the few supernatural power cultivators in the Li family who cultivated the third grade supernatural power 5 Emperor's True Sword. Sensing the gaze of the immortal, Li Changlin gave a bitter smile, but he did not dare to go against the other party's will, so he stood up and bowed, saying, "I'm willing to share the worries of the immortal." Li Yunzi nodded and said with a smile, "Good." Li Changlin took a deep breath and prayed in secret. Then he pinched his fingers and chanted a spell, paid his merits, and invited the projection of the Cheyenne treasure mirror. Looking at the sparkling mirror in the center of the meeting hall and the question and answer rules presented on it, the three absolute sword immortal slowly said, according to the instructions of the immortal, "Respected Cheyenne treasure mirror, please tell me who solved the historical fog in the Chijin mountain area?" As soon as he finished speaking, the surface of the mirror emitted a misty light, and then two figures, a man and a woman, appeared. The man was okay, and it can be seen that he was strong and had a beard, but the woman's appearance was very vague, with only an outline. "That man seems to be Zhao Song. I have met him once before." Seeing this, Li Fuan suddenly pointed at the man in the picture and said, although he only glanced at him from a distance and never paid attention to him, as a master of supernatural powers, his memory is very good. Zhao Song, historical mist was actually solved by the head of the Zhao family and a mysterious woman. Li Yunzi frowned and was about to ask Li Changlin to continue asking when she saw the picture on the mirror fade away and replaced by a line of text, "Open the secret room of the 5 Emperors Pavilion within 1 hour." Seeing such a task, Li Changlin was stunned at first, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. After all, this was not an excessive request, and it could even be said to be quite simple, especially when he used his authority in the Blessed Land to let his spiritual consciousness scan the secret room in the 5 Emperors Pavilion, and found that all the restrictions and formations were intact. He felt that it was foolproof. Unless the Zuantan master is Sheng Xuan's engine, it is impossible to escape silently, and he must still be inside. The other members of the Li family also thought of this and started to investigate. Only Li Yunzi asked in surprise, "The secret room of the 5 Emperors Pavilion? What's there?" Reply to the immortal, "We invited a master of interpretation to interpret the 5 Emperors' true divine power notes there." Li Changlin organized his sentences and described in detail how he found the master and invited him to the Blessed Land. Hearing this, Li Yunzi frowned tightly because she had taken the family's 5 Emperors' true divine power notes to ask the true Lord Kingsu for advice. But even if the other party was Sheng Xuan, he could not perfectly interpret this skill and could not get the true meaning of Teichu. What virtue and ability did the so-called Zuanten Taoist have to be more powerful than the Sheng Xuan True Lord? This is simply unrealistic. Either the Zuanten Taoist is the incarnation of a powerful person, or the other party is a complete liar. Thinking of this, Li Yunzi stood up, walked out of the Kinglian Hall quickly, and went straight to the 5 Emperors Pavilion. Seeing this, the master seemed to realize that something was wrong, and hurried to follow. After more than 10 breaths, everyone arrived in front of the secret room. Li Yunzi waved her slender hand, and all the restrictions and formations were lifted. The situation in the secret room also jumped into the eyes of the masters of supernatural powers. All the items in it were there, and the translation of the skills was neatly placed on the desk. Only the master Zhao Chen himself was missing. This. Li Changlin stood there like being struck by thunder. You know, this master was the one he strongly advocated to invite into the cave heaven. Although the translation of 5 Emperor's true supernatural power notes was handed over to the other party by voting, now that there is a problem, he is obviously the most responsible. The other supernatural masters also changed their faces, and all kinds of speculations came to their minds. Because they wanted to imprison the Taoist Zhao Chen for life, their Li family handed over all their core skills to the other party. This matter is not to be underestimated. Li Yunzi narrowed her eyes, her fingers slightly bent, and she began to calculate. After a moment, she stretched out her hand and called the translations into her palm, lowering her head to read. The more she read, the brighter her eyes became. The laws around her appeared and fluctuated violently, forcing the Li family's magical powers around her to retreat far away, before they could barely withstand her might. After a long time, the fluctuations of the laws on Li Yunzi's body gradually subsided, and she herself sighed with regret, because the translation here only contained the part from True Key to Gangsha, but the most critical magic power secret was missing. Seeing that her condition had returned to normal, Li Changlin and others approached her again cautiously and asked tentatively, "Master, have you found anything?" Li Yunzi exhaled a breath of turbid air, nodded and said, "The master of Zhao Chen you invited is probably a senior who plays with the world. He left directly from the secret room." Left directly from the secret room? Li Changlin's heart skipped a beat, and his face showed a look of horror. Not to mention those prohibitions and formations. You have to know that this place is inside the Cheyenne blessed land. Being able to ignore the barrier of the blessed land and teleport, the Zhao Chen Taoist must be at least in the second realm of Dongsun, or even a Shengxuan's engine. But why would such an existence use such means to obtain the secrets of my Li family? If he wanted, he would have just asked directly. We had no capital to refuse at that time. At this time, Li Fuan asked in confusion. Before Li Yunzi came back, even if their Li family relied on the blessed land, it would not be possible to stop a Shengxuan's engine. Maybe he is going through the tribulation, or the ritual requires it, or he is simply joking with you. Li Yunzi is knowledgeable after all. After responding, she said meaningfully, or he is collecting something special like the Cheyenne treasure mirror. She paused and emphasized, in short, if you meet this Zhao Chen Taoist again in the future, you must not conflict with him. Yes. After solving the problem, everyone returned to the Kinglian Hall. Li Yunzi pursed her lips, as if she had made up her mind, and then pointed at the phantom of the treasure mirror that had not dissipated and said, "Okay. Let's continue to ask it questions. This time I'll do it myself. That's all for now. My grandma may only be here for a few days. I've been busy taking care of her. I don't have much time to write recently. I'm sorry." Chapter 502 Top Card. Songhuang Mountain is located in the southwest of Yumen County, more than 100 miles away. Although the name contains mountain, it is not really a mountain. On the contrary, it is actually a valley. The reason why it is named Songhuang Mountain is that 9,000 years ago, when the princes were fighting, Song Tezu played the piano alone here and stopped the most elite Langji army of another vassal state Dazhao for 3 days, laying the foundation for the key battle of Song's annexation of Zhao, the Battle of Yumen. After this battle, Chezun, a general of the Zhao army and also a member of the royal family of Dazhao, sighed. Although this place is a smooth road, with the Emperor Song here, even the steepness of Shu Mountain is difficult to defeat. Since Chezun is a world famous general, not only is he a god in using troops, but he is also a great man with few rivals in the Dongsuan territory. Naturally, his words are quite weighty, so this valley has been called Songhuang Mountain by later generations, and has been passed down to this day. The story of Emperor Song playing the zither and retreating from the army is quite legendary and elegant. Countless literati and scholars have come here to compose poems and pay tribute to the ancients. Songhuang Mountain has gradually become a scenic spot, or a high-end entertainment town with complete facilities. Yuhu Tower is the most luxurious place in the entire Songhuang Mountain. Only high-ranking officials and dignitaries are not qualified to enter this building for entertainment. At this moment, Zhao Chen stood in front of Yuhu Tower, looking at this building that looks like an upright jade zither. He felt that there was some ominous aura brewing in it. Although he didn't feel any danger, it made people feel depressed. Behind him followed the two sisters Gong Yun, the breaking delusion eye, and Gong Fei, the fortune goddess. Of course, the latter was actually the snow eagle sword Feng Wan in disguise. Lady Feng had been depressed for a long time in the backyard of the Golden Art Martial Arts Hall. She was so quiet that she wanted to move, so she took the opportunity to meet her sixth brother, to go out for fun. Zhao Chen hesitated for a moment, then looked back at Gong Yun. He found that this eye that breaks delusion did not notice anything special, and immediately became more alert. Could it be that the life-seeking birthday star Hao Shangxing has bad intentions? But with his middle-grade magical power that even Kang Lin cannot beat, he should not pose any threat to me. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen saw a young man in a green robe and pale face coming out of the building. It was the young master in green robe Li Changsheng. When he saw Zhao Chen, he immediately bowed and said, "Hello, young master Chen. Senior Hao is waiting in the private room on the 3rd floor." After that, he looked at Gong Yun and Gong Fei again, raised his lips and said, "I haven't seen you for a few days. Fifth sister looks more charming and beautiful, and Gong Fei has changed even more." Gong Fei, or Feng Wan, blinked and asked curiously in Gong Fei's tone, "Young Master Li, how have I changed?" "I have become a little more cold," Li Changsheng replied with a smile. His words seemed to be a little teasing, but in fact they were meant to be. Feng Wan knew that the sixth brother had seen through her identity. Although she didn't quite understand where she had revealed her flaw, she still subconsciously hid behind Zhao Chen. This action made Li Changsheng stunned for a moment, and then he glanced back and forth at the three people meaningfully. Zhao Chen didn't care about these little episodes. He had just quietly connected the fateful heavenly pond in the star chariot and observed the fate of the people around him. Seeing that there was no sign of decline, he was relieved. This shows that the abnormality in Yuhu building will not have any bad effects, at least not for the time being. And if I act unnaturally, it may bring disaster. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen also greeted Li Changsheng and said at the end, "Let's go in. Don't keep Senior Hao waiting for a long time." "Good." Li Changsheng nodded with a smile, led the way, and soon led the three people to the private room on the 3rd floor. This private room was decorated magnificently, with a priceless guqin in the middle, and imitations of the world's most famous flutes hanging on the walls on both sides. In front of them was a whole bright curtain of light, from which one could see the singing and dancing on the central stage of Yuhu Tower. Hao Shangxing, with a bulging forehead, saw them enter the door, laughed and stood up to greet them, and when he saw the sisters Gong Yun and Gong Fei coming together, he said in a rather ambiguous tone, "Mr. Chen is indeed a young and romantic man, but why didn't Fairy Zeng accompany him? King Guyan has something to do and needs to leave Ganzhou for a while." Zhao Chen responded simply. This was not an excuse. As a supernatural cultivator of the Zeng family's generation, Zeng King Guyan could not always be with Zhao Chen, and naturally she had her own tasks to do. Moreover, although the dragon girl needed to play the role of amorous, she could not always accompany her lover. There had to be separations and reunions, experience all kinds of emotions, before she could be considered crossing the calamity. Although King Guyan, who was essentially an incarnation, did not need it, she also had to act to avoid suspicion. What's more, the rewards for the missions given by the Zeng family are quite generous. Fairy Zeng is not in Ganzhou. Hao Shangxing showed a little disappointment on his face, but he quickly concealed it. The reason why he invited Zhao Chen to a banquet at Songhuang Mountain was to let him check and balance the new supernatural power Qin Sheng who occupied Wuiyao Valley and San Mountain. This woman has a mysterious background and a big appetite. She is not easy to deal with. If it were in the past, he would definitely use official forces to thoroughly investigate her origins and make a fuss about her identity loopholes. But since the night of Blood Moon, as the Li family shrank, almost all the strange supernatural powers coming in from other states were like this, and they were likely to have the support of the powerful families and major sects behind them. How could Hao Shangxing dare to investigate casually? This time, he wanted to use Zheng Qingan's power to suppress Qin Sheng, which was also a warning to other foreign forces, so that they would not dare to be too presumptuous. The result was so unfortunate. As for the Li family, even if Fairy Yunzi returned, they were still shrinking their power, and only a few big cities were left. After all, Fairy Yunzi only took a leave to come back temporarily, and she would have to return to the East China Sea defense line sooner or later. This was also the price she had to pay to get the guidance of true Lord Kingsu. However, Hao Shangxing knew that in addition to Fairy Zheng, there was also Fairy Tang and Fairy Duan in the Golden Art Martial Arts Hall. One of them was the legitimate daughter of a noble family relative, and the other was the illegitimate daughter of an elder of the upper sect. Although such identities were not as good as Zheng Qingan, they were enough to suppress those prominent families and major sects that extended their hands into Ganzhou. What's more, these two fairies were both top-grade magical powers. Therefore, Hao Shangxing entertained Zhao Chen very warmly. He was not in a hurry to talk about business, but while enjoying the singing and dancing of Yuhu Tower, he drank and sang and had fun. After both parties were quite happy, Hao Shangxing thought that Zhao Chen had actually been distracted to guard against something wrong in the building. Hao Shangxing apologized and left Li Changsheng to talk to the two female knights Gong, while he and Zhao Chen walked into the inner room of the private room. The layout here is similar to that outside, except that there are no Guqin and Anxiao. Just when Hao Shangxing was about to state his request and exchange conditions, there was a commotion in Yuhu Tower. Hao Shangxing glanced at the central stage and saw that Zhao Chen's attention seemed to be attracted to it, so he smiled and explained, "This is Yuhu Tower's top performer today. Young Master Chen wants to." Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Zhao Chen's wave of his hand. At the same time, Zhao Chen's eyes were tightly closed. It turns out that the abnormality in Yuhu Tower is because of her. The so-called top performer turned out to be a Dangsuan real person, and it looks like she is in a very bad mood. No wonder I feel depressed. My grandmother passed away today. I really can't squeeze out too much time to write, so I'll leave it at that for now. I should be able to recover after the funeral on Wednesday. Sorry again, hope you understand. Chapter 503, Purple Jade Godbreaker. According to the value observed by the Dangsuai, the woman on the central stage is undoubtedly a Dangsuan real person. But if a Dangsuan is really unwilling, who can make her come, or have to come here to dance, acting, ritual, or a way to avoid disaster? In any case, this real person is not in a very good mood, so it is better not to touch her bad luck. Especially, I can't let her realize that her identity has been seen through by me. One thought after another flashed through his mind. Zhao Chen opened his eyes again, looked at Hao Shangxing, who was surprised by being interrupted, smiled awkwardly, and explained, "My Omio is nearby. Senior Hao, please get down to business." Zhao Chen had to find a reason to cover up his previous gaffe, so as not to let Hao Shangxing misunderstand and do something unnecessary, such as thinking that he has taken a fancy to the top card on the stage. If it attracts her attention and dissatisfaction, it will be bad. But he didn't lie. Tang Mio was in the Dairi crossing chat and could come at any time. Wasn't he nearby? Mio Mio. Are you talking about Fairy Tang Mio? It seems that the rumors are true. This is a good thing. Even if Fairy Zheng is not here, I have a good chance of accomplishing what I'm planning. Fairy Tang's ability to conceal her aura is so exquisite that I didn't even notice it. Is it the spiritual god body protection spell in the 7-star divine spell sutra? Hao Shangxing suddenly realized and gave Zhao Chen a look that said, "I understand everything." Then he stopped paying attention to the central stage and focused on his request. The worshipper of the county magistrate's mansion did not hide his true intentions, but was open and honest, telling the goals he wanted to achieve one by one, and finally gave the reward he could pay for it. First, help the person nominated by Zhao Chen to the position of the Lord of Yicheng. Even if he was not an official before, it would not be a problem. He still has the quota of N9 Enshi in his hand, so arranging a small city lord is not a problem. Second, he can provide the trade route throughout Ganzhou for the caravan of the Golden Art Martial Arts Hall, and no longer collect any taxes. Hao Shangxing couldn't guarantee this before, but after Red Gold Mountain returned to reality, the news that Huang Xianjun, the old owner of Golden Art Martial Arts Hall, was the former Yuan sect Xianjun Zenren was no longer a secret among the major forces. Even if his whereabouts are unknown, or even if he has fallen, the forces in Ganzhou will not hold a disciple of a Zenren on the trade route. It can be said that when the historical fog of Red Gold Mountain came to an end and the truth inside gradually surfaced, no one has come to trouble Zhao Chen until now. In addition to Zheng Qinggan's deterrence and Yan Hongxia's shelter, a large part of the reason is that he is Huang Xianjun's disciple. The third is the real dry goods. In order to lead Zhao Chen into the game, Hao Shangxing also bleeds a lot, and actually took out a magical artifact Purple Jade Broken God Hairpin. You know, each magical artifact is extremely rare. Even the big sects with deep heritage like Beiyu Sect, Shengling Sect, and Zushan Sect only have 4 or 5 of them. This is something that can really suppress the fortune of the sect. The reason why the supernatural power cultivators are called grandmasters is because only those with supernatural power are truly qualified to establish a sect. Once a sect loses its supernatural power, it needs a supernatural power instrument to barely keep the sect alive. Although this purple jade god-breaking hairpin can only release the 6th grade supernatural power 9 heavens purple clouds, it also shows Hao Shangxing's sincerity. Although it is of no use to me, on the one hand, Hao Shangxing's plan was planned by Fei Meng and me, which is equivalent to earning a supernatural power instrument for free. On the other hand, I plan to visit Sister Hongxia later, and this purple jade god-breaking hairpin is just right as a gift. Well, Sister Hongxia is studying the Yangxia Danshu of the Uniying sect, so it is quite suitable for her to wear it. Looking at Zhao Chen who seemed to be hesitating, Hao Shangxing did not urge him, but just waited quietly for a reply. In fact, he had a 4th reward, which was to buy the top star in the building today, and give it to Zhao Chen, which was also a favor to him. But since Fairy Tang was nearby, he had to give up, so as not to offend her. On the other side, Zhao Chen took the purple jade god-breaking hairpin, and played with it in his hand for a while, actually identifying it through the Dangsu eye. Its function was roughly the same as Hao Shangxing's description, but at the end of the introduction it was written, "This hairpin was carried by a cultivator 3000 years ago. Long-term wearing will have a connection with the cultivator at the level of fate, and there is a certain possibility of encountering things or items related to the other party." Zhao Chen didn't care too much about this, because every item of magical power and above would more or less involve the traction of the level of fate, but this kind of traction of fate was actually very weak and almost negligible. For example, a cultivator who practices a certain technique must have a fateful entanglement with the existence of the source of the technique, but not everyone who practices this technique will encounter adventures and dangers every day, and most people may not encounter special things in their lifetime, so there is no need to worry about it. Zhao Chen had previously appraised other magical instruments in his hands, and most of them had a similar description, but this one was relatively more specific. 3000 years ago. That person is likely to have fallen long ago. After all, even the Dangxuan Zhenjun rarely lives that long. As for the Shengxuan Zhenjun, Zhao Chen didn't even think about it. How could such an existence carry a 6th grade magical instrument with him? In this way, after Zhao Chen appreciated it, he directly put away this purple jade broken god hairpin, and saw a smile on Hao Shangxing's face without surprise. Because it means that he agreed to the other party's commission. Then I will wait for good news from Master Chen. Hao Shangxing stood up and said, "I wish you success in everything you do." He had fought with Qin Sheng before. Although the other party was stronger than him, he would never be a match for 2 top grade magical powers. Success in everything you do is definitely success in everything you do. After all, it's a play with Qin Sheng. But after this time, I'm afraid that my identity as a successor of Happy Bodhisattva will really be confirmed. Although this will help me hide deeper secrets, I always feel that. Zhao Chen shook his head secretly and did not respond. At this time, the song and dance on the central stage came to an end, and the terrible top card lady also left. Zhao Chen refused the subsequent entertainment project arranged by Hao Shangxing for him. After coming out of the inner room and meeting with Gong Yun and Feng Wan, he said goodbye and left. After leaving Yuhu Tower, Zhao Chen breathed a sigh of relief, and the sense of depression in his heart was swept away. Having a strong premonition is not a good thing. Fortunately, as I gradually mastered the investigator, I could control this state. When Zhao Chen was complaining, Gong Yun had already come to his side and used the cat card, mother-child card to transmit the message. I have informed my 6th brother about the formation of the Seed of Lust. He said he would find a way to inform Ma Guangliang. That's good. Zhao Chen just responded, and suddenly he was stunned and stood still. Because a woman appeared in front of him, a woman who looked 17 or 18 years old, with a pair of bright eyes. It was the top card who danced on the central stage before. At this time, this person who seemed to be a dancer was being entangled by several people dressed as guards, and the expression on his face became colder and colder. As a real body of the 2nd level of Dangsun, Li Yunzi hadn't been so angry for a long time. Originally, she felt ashamed to dance in such an occasion, and now the entanglement of these lackeys of the dandy made her even more angry, especially among those dandy boys. Half of them are from the Li family, and the reason why Li Yunzi, a real person, came to such a place to be the so-called top card was naturally a task arranged by the Cheyenne treasure mirror. It turned out that, after reading many translations of her own skills in the secret room of the 5 Emperors Pavilion that day, Li Yunzi had already realized how superb the master of Zhuantan was in interpreting texts, and she was eager to get to know this senior. Because she happened to have an article written in the words of the great Dao, and this article could play an extremely important role in perfecting her true body. In the past, the true Lord Kingsu only interpreted a few words, which benefited her a lot. If she could interpret the text perfectly, wouldn't it be possible to ascend to the Zuan? And the reason why she personally asked the treasure mirror was because she knew how amazing the price was to pay for the information related to that kind of existence, which was not something that could be solved by simple merit. According to past experience, the supernatural cultivators who asked would likely be at risk of falling. Even she did not dare to ask the whereabouts of the Taoist priest of Zhuantan directly, but indirectly inquired about how to establish a bond with that being, and have a chance to meet him in the future. After giving the method, the Cheyenne treasure mirror arranged a task for her to seal her own cultivation and dance as the top performer in Yuhu Tower for 3 days. If she did not complete it, the method given before would not have any effect. That's all for today. I'll catch up on some sleep and add more words after my grandmother's funeral tomorrow. Chapter 504, Saving the Beauty in the Black Domain Passage. In fact, with Li Yunzi's current strength, she can ignore the task of Cheyenne treasure mirror because the other party's punishment can't do anything to her. However, Cheyenne treasure mirror obviously knows this, so it adds the condition of if not completed, the methods given before will not have any effect when giving the task. Although it can't punish the real person of the 2nd level of Dangsun, it can ruin her. Therefore, Li Yunzi had to bear the humiliation and come to this Yuhu Tower to dance. Speaking of which, the reason why this real person who condensed the true body of the Queen of Heaven can dance and looks quite proficient is that she actually learned it when she completed the task of Cheyenne treasure mirror a long time ago. Looking at the guards who gathered around, Li Yunzi was furious and wanted to kill these lackeys directly. However, the task given by Cheyenne treasure mirror clearly stated that she had to seal her cultivation for 3 days. Once she took action, it would likely lead to the failure of the task. Wouldn't the humiliation she suffered before be in vain? But if she didn't do it, she might suffer even greater humiliation today, and it was most likely that the one who humiliated her was her own dandy junior. Seeing those guards getting closer and closer, and even reaching out to her, Li Yunzi sighed and made a decision in her heart. The body is just a shell, and getting to know the Taoist of Zhuantan, and getting a chance to go further may only be once, so it goes without saying how to choose. This may be one of the calamities, to get the opportunity to Shengsun, or a test of my Dao heart. The mission of Cheyenne treasure mirror may also be to sharpen my character through some shameful things. If you can't even bear some humiliation and get angry because of it, then what qualifications do you have to compete for the Shengsun? The Dao that Shengsun faces is 100 times more terrifying than Dangsun. If I face even a little humiliation, then I will inevitably sink and become a Dao evil. Of course, whether or not to unlock one's strength and being able to face humiliation is one thing, but it does not mean giving up resistance. Personal strength does not only refer to military force, but also includes wisdom and the ability to solve problems. Thoughts raced, Li Yunxi calmly observed the surroundings, and in a short period of time she thought of 3 ways to escape. Although the chances were only 30% to 40%, it was worth a try. Speaking of which, the reason why I fell into this embarrassing situation was that I was full of shame and unprepared before completing the task. If there was a younger generation with magical powers following me, this would not have happened. And Fuan, Changlin and the others did not want to offend me, so they just asked someone to say hello to Yuhu Tower and stopped paying attention to it. I'm afraid they didn't expect that a Dangshan real person like me might really suffer a loss here. While Li Yunxi was reflecting on herself, she glanced at a dry well nearby and was about to try to escape according to the plan she had just made. But at this moment, a slender black shadow suddenly crossed the chests of the guards like a dragon, stirring up the airflow and whipping them all away. Then, the black shadow revealed its true appearance, which was actually a soft whip with a tiger head on one end. The soft whip fell into the hands of a heroic woman, who was Gong Yun. As the breaking delusion among the 7 heroes of Emonan, how could she sit idly by and watch such a dandy teasing a girl? Even if the girl was a dancer, she should not be treated like this, as long as she didn't want to. Although Zhao Chen didn't want to have anything to do with a Dangshan real person who was either acting or going through tribulations, he was also worried that the other party would be really pissed off. When her identity was exposed, those who teased her would certainly not survive, but those who had seen her dance before might also be silenced. Therefore, Zhao Chen did not stop Gong Yun's actions, and even condensed a Black Emperor's blood sword key casually, shocking the magic masters around the dandy young men in the Yuhu building. Speaking of which, after achieving the magic power realm and condensing the 5 immortal spiritual true essence, even if he did not deliberately practice the Li family's 5 emperors true sword art and even did not collect the corresponding evil spirits, Zhao Chen's true essence could simulate the changes of the 5 sword energies, at least 60% to 70% similar. Although it may not be as powerful as the original, it may be even better in terms of mystery. And more importantly, Zhao Chen's magic power has reached the peak of the 7th turn, so the sword energy simulated by the magic power true essence is naturally at the level of a normal 7th turn, comparable to the natal spell. Several young masters of the Li family in the building were so angry that they wanted to ask the worshippers around them to take action. However, not to mention that those so-called masters only had the 3rd level of magic power at most and were no match for them. Someone had already recognized the identities of Zhao Chen and Gong Yun, which made them lose their temper immediately. Although these Li family playboys have some background, they can't compare to the grandson of the former patriarch, Li Yunfeng. Even young Master Yunfeng was frustrated by Zhao Chen, so how dare they do anything rash? They had to recall their men in dismay and apologize to Blood Sword Young Master and Breaking Delusion I. In this regard, Li Yunxi, who had turned from danger to safety, breathed a sigh of relief, and her beautiful eyes swept over Zhao Chen, thinking in her heart, Huang Jiagong's disciples are really not simple. That Black Emperor's blood passing sword key seems to be the same as mine, no longer sticking to the original method and walking its own way. Well, I feel a bit of yearning and desire in that spell. Is this the charming effect brought about by the integration of the power of joyful bodhisattva? It's a pity that I have sealed my cultivation and cannot even use my spiritual consciousness, otherwise I could study it. She learned about Zhao Chen and Gong Yun's identities from the people who just came to apologize to them, but she didn't know if it was because of the characteristics of the spiritual key of the 5 immortals. Li Yunxi completely ignored Gong Yun, the benefactor, and focused all her attention on Zhao Chen. She thought about it and stepped forward to thank him. But Zhao Chen didn't want to have too much interaction with a Dangshan cultivator, whose origins were unknown and who made him feel depressed, so he just perfunctorily said a few words and left here with Gong Yun and Feng Wan on the pretext of having something important to do. Looking at his receding figure, Li Yunzi frowned, but then relaxed her brows, looking back at the uselessly family playboys in the building with a cold look in her eyes. When the mission is over in 3 days, Changlin and the others will have to straighten out the family tradition. Next, after staying in the family for a while and stabilizing the situation, we will go to Yun's house to wait for the one mentioned in the Cheyenne treasure mirror and the opportunity to meet the Zuan Taoist in half a year. I have asked for a year's leave from True Lord King Su, so I have plenty of time. Not to mention Li Yun's thoughts, how Shang Tsung, who witnessed the whole incident on the 3rd floor of Yuhu building, sighed with emotion. Black Emperor's blood passing sword key has reached the 7th level already. What a terrifying speed of cultivation. It took me 10 years to advance from the level of magic power to this point, and I'm still the best among my peers. However, the green-robed young man Li Changsheng who was standing beside him did not respond. His eyes wandered back and forth between Li Yunzi and Zhao Chen who was walking away for a while, and his eyes slowly narrowed. It was unknown what he was thinking about. In the afternoon, Zhao Chen, who returned to the Golden Art Martial Arts Hall, summoned the Phantom of the Key of Morning Light. He planned to visit Yan Hangxia, whom he had not seen for a long time, and bring her the news that Li Zieling had been rescued. Since Yan Hangxia was not in Ganzhou at this time, the mountains were high and the roads were long, so he was going to try the Black Domain passage opened by the Key of Morning Light as the Baoguan said. After his spirit entered the Big Sun Star Aft, Zhao Chen first blessed himself with good luck, and then contacted Yan Hangxia's location. At the same time, in reality, he held the illusory Key of Morning Light, exerted force on his wrist, and slowly turned it. The next moment, a dark door, that seemed neither virtual nor illusory appeared in front of him. Its style is very similar to the gate of the Chijin Mountain ruins, but the details are slightly different, and no special blood power is needed as the key. When Zhao Chen pushed open the gate and walked into it, he found that the scene in front of him was exactly the same as the passage in Chijin Mountain. There was endless darkness all around, and a road paved with stone steps stretched into the distance, extending into the end of the darkness. The funeral at home is finally over, so this is all for today, and I will resume normal updates tomorrow. Chapter 505 for Gifts. Black Domain. Zhao Chen silently recited the term he had heard from the crown. He used his spiritual sense to scan the dense and dangerous darkness around him. He felt a palpitation, as if there was a monster hidden in its depths. As long as he stepped in, he would be doomed. With a slight sigh, Zhao Chen suppressed his strong curiosity and began to walk forward on the stone steps. He soon discovered that this place was different from the previous Red Gold Mountain ruins. As he moved forward, the gate behind him and the stone steps he stepped on disappeared into the darkness. In other words, I used the Key of Morning Light Phantom to open up a one-way temporary passage, while the cave built by Song Wuyuru in Red Gold Mountain is relatively stable. Could it be that his authority on the Key of Morning Light is higher than mine? Or in other words, is there any way he can borrow more power from the Star Aft accessories? Well, the latter possibility is more likely, and the passage to the secret cave he built was not just the means of traveling through the Black Domain. He also used methods borrowed from the Worry-Free Cave Heavens original space. But in any case, it shows that Song Wuyuru is knowledgeable and his research on the Star Aft accessories is far superior to mine. Could it be that he is the real candidate? Or has a close relationship with a certain candidate? TSK, this guy has more and more secrets. But that's right, being able to plan and plot against the unreal person with his supernatural powers already shows how extraordinary he is. While thinking in his heart, Zhao Chen did not look back and walked straight forward along the stone steps. Because the time and space in the Black Domain were all confused, Zhao Chen had no way of judging how long he had walked. Maybe it was an hour, maybe it was 2 hours. In short, just when Zhao Chen couldn't help but want to go to the Big Sun Star Chariot to confirm it, a ray of light suddenly appeared in front of him. And with his footsteps, the light became more and more obvious and soon filled his field of vision. Seeing this, Zhao Chen's spirit suddenly lifted, and then he jumped into the light with a leap. Jinsao is located in the bitter cold land in the north of Daxia. It is adjacent to the Liao's House No Ridge in the east, the supporting Heaven God Mountain in the north, and the endless snowfields in the west that will get you lost once you enter. In the south, across the desert and grassland, there are the 4 states of Gan, Liang, Su, and Ning. It has a vast territory, an area at least equivalent to 10 Gansus, but its population is only about the same as that of Ganzhou, a typical example of a vast land with a sparse population. You know, Ganzhou also has a small population. Not to mention compared with the 9 states in the Central Plains, even the Liang and Ning states in the northwest are several times larger than Ganzhou. Therefore, although Jinzhou is suppressed by the aristocratic families, the Mu family can only guarantee the stability of a few large cities, and the rest of the small cities or more remote areas cannot be guaranteed. Therefore, various robbers and bandits, monks who have committed crimes, and members of secret organizations like to hide in Jinzhou and use this as a base to cause chaos in the neighboring states. Even with the assistance of the 6 gates and the Daoist office, the Mu family is often unable to do anything about it. After all, even if the true lord of the Mu family can illuminate a state, it is impossible to pay attention to the movements in the territory all the time. Most of the time, they will only take action when they have no choice. Fortunately, there is now Zhao Chen's Xingchen map monitoring, and it is difficult for powerful demons to enter the territory of Daxia. However, it is precisely because of the lack of official manpower that in some remote cases, the Daoist office and the 6 gates of Jinzhou will invite fellow Taoists from other states to enter the country to assist. The principle is to invite the Daoguan office or the 6 gates colleagues from the state where the person to be arrested committed a crime. It is precisely because of this that Yan Hongxia, who was originally investigating the news of the Yuanzang in Anai, was transferred to Lunte, a small city in Beating County, Jinzhou, with an official document. This Lunte city is said to have been an important town in the ancient Tang dynasty, but with the disappearance of the 100 kingdoms in the western regions, Lunte has lost its original significance like human. In addition, the endless snowfield environment west of Lunte is even worse than the endless desert west of Human, and no relics have ever been found, resulting in Lunte city being dilapidated for a long time, and the population is even less than some villages in Ganzhou. It was not until the Tang dynasty tomb that became a joke was discovered not long ago that it finally became a little popular. But as a story of the 2 Mona Gufeng recording the fire gun to kill the enemy stone tablet was spread, this tomb was considered a fake in the eyes of most people, and the popularity naturally dropped. However, there are also many professional archaeological teams and casual cultivators who stay here. They believe that the stele may be the work of tomb robbers, and the tomb itself is real. As for why Yan Hongxia was sent here, that's because Li Yunfeng's maid Danju seemed to have escaped here, and the 2 Li family retainers who had been following her, 7 Yao Magic Banner Yang Zicheng and Ice and Snow Cold Blade Feng Sheng, also showed up and were recognized. Danju was originally Li Yunfeng's ex-wife, that is, the maid of Miss Che's dowry. Later, because she instigated Li Yunfeng to use Jizan to hire someone to assassinate Zhao Chen, she exposed the identity of the remnant of Xingguan Temple. Because it was related to the evil organization, and she was from Ganzhou, and was born in Human, Yan Hongxia, the highest official of Human's Daoguan office, was naturally seconded here. Because it was related to the murderer who assassinated Zhao Chen, she did not refuse. On this day, Yan Hongxia was originally searching for the traces of Danju in a dilapidated manor that had been abandoned for who knows how many years. All signs showed that the other party had settled here. But suddenly, she received a message from the master, saying that Zhao Chen would soon arrive by her side, and asked her to find a place where no one was staying. Yan Hongxia was stunned at first when she heard the news, and then she was overjoyed. She had been separated from Zhao Chen for a long time, and she actually missed him very much in her heart. Thinking of the scene at the end of the last double cultivation, when they almost really did that step, Yan Hongxia felt her face burning, and even the cold wind of Beating County could not cool it down. After thinking about it for a while, Yan Hongxia came to her senses, and immediately found a relatively intact house in the backyard of the manor and walked in. Strangely enough, the materials used in the front yard in the main house of this abandoned manor are obviously better, and even a lot of national stone and 10,000-year redwood that are said to be immortal are used, but only the outlines of those places are left, and not even the remains of the buildings are left. On the contrary, this backyard is relatively intact. Yan Hongxue naturally noticed the abnormality here, but with her eyesight, she could not detect the special features of these houses in the backyard. She could only look forward to reading the investigation results of her predecessors. After returning to the big city, she thought and waited, and after nearly an hour, a door of light suddenly appeared in front of her. The light door flashed away, and just when Yan Hongxue thought she was dazzled, the man she had been thinking about appeared in her field of vision. Zhao Chen? Yan Hongxue did not expect Zhao Chen to appear in this way, and could not help but murmur, thinking that she was dreaming. Because Zhao Chen did not hide his aura, his cultivation of the peak of the 7th turn of mana was fully displayed in front of Yan Hongxue. "It's me." Zhao Chen nodded with a smile, and then asked, "How long has it been since you received the news from the master until I arrived?" The reason for asking this was to find out the time it takes to travel through the Black Domain channel, and secondly, to let Yan Hongxue confirm her identity. Sure enough, when Yan Hongxue heard Zhao Chen mention the master, she no longer had any doubts. Although she was shocked by the other party's rapid improvement in cultivation, considering his identity as a patron, she felt that it was not unacceptable. She took a deep breath and replied, "About an hour and a half." An hour and a half. Human is more than 20,000 miles away from Lante. Even if a faster flying spell is used, most of the time it takes 4 or 5 days, and it has to fly day and night. Even a cultivator with the 9th level of magic power can't do it. Like Sister Hongxue slow Buan Xiandan, it would probably take more than a week of flying without eating or drinking to get here. She probably used the official teleportation array to come here before. As for flying magical powers, some of them are actually about the same speed as spells, but with a different twist. For example, the water and fire wings that come with my Liangai Taoist robe are no faster than the flying tiger divine eagle, which is an artifact spell that can assemble an airplane. But Wang Daoi's Hua crossing Shinfengdan is famous for its fast speed. A distance of 20,000 miles can be crossed in a few hours. But even a cultivator with magical powers cannot continuously control the magical powers for several hours. Neither the mana nor the consciousness can sustain it. And I, who use the Black Domain channel, crossed the same distance in just an hour and a half. Baogwen is right. If the distance is far enough, this is indeed a first-class way to travel besides teleportation. Hey, businessmen always have some unknown shortcuts. Maybe the Black Domain symbolizes this kind of shortcut? As Zhao Chen's thoughts drifted further and further away, Yan Hongxue saw that he was wearing thin clothes and quickly took out a warm coat from her storage bag. Since being promoted to the 6th rank Chaos Heo Deputy Envoy, Yan Hongxue also had an official storage bag. Zhao Chen came back to his senses. Although he was already immune to cold and heat in his magical instrument Liangai Taoist robe, he still felt warm in his heart and let the other party put the coat on him. Then, he looked at Yan Hongxue with his Dangshu eyes, and found that the red cloud sword who turned the golden hairpin into a sword and spit out red clouds was still graceful, but the cotton coat on her body somewhat concealed her good figure, and it was not as heroic as the previous Fiu official uniform. Of course, the above did not need to be observed by the Dangshu eyes. What he really saw was that Yan Hongxue's cultivation level remained at the 6th level, and the sword energy on her body only had 4 Red Emperor nourishing essence, Black Emperor circulating blood, Green Emperor protecting soul, and White Emperor serving soul, lacking the feeling of Yellow Emperor Zhangzhu. It was unknown whether she had no key points or had not yet collected the Gangsha energy required for the Yellow Emperor Zhangzhu sword. Yan Hongxue felt a little embarrassed by Zhao Chen's gaze. She lowered her head slightly and said shyly, "What are you looking at?" Knowing that she was thin-skinned, Zhao Chen just smiled and did not take the opportunity to talk nonsense. Instead, he patted his coat and said, "Sister Hongxue really cares about me. It's worth it that I came here this time to bring you a few gifts." Well, there is good news. Although Yan Hongxue was thin-skinned and shy in matters between men and women, she had already accepted Zhao Chen's closeness and naturally would not be hypocritical, so she asked curiously, "What is it?" As for the gifts, there are 4, and there are 2 good news. Do you want to see the gifts first, or hear the good news first? Zhao Chen deliberately kept the secret, and said with a smile, Yan Hongxia thought about it and said affirmatively, look at the gifts first. She could roughly guess one good news, so she was not in a hurry to listen and planned to find out what the gifts were first. She intuitively felt that the gifts brought by Zhao Chen would most likely help improve her magic power. Yan Hongxia was actually a little anxious about this, because Zhao Chen's magic power had surpassed hers, which made her feel a great sense of crisis. She was worried that she would not be able to keep up with the other party, could no longer help the other party, and would drift away from him until she could not even see his back. Zhao Chen did not rush to take out the gift, but smiled and said, in just 1 month, Sister Hongxia, you have cultivated your magic power from the 5th to the 6th level. You really deserve the name of a genius. Of course, I won't mention that the other party had advanced from the 3rd to the 5th turn in half a month. That was the result of the two of them practicing together. Hearing this, Yan Hongxia couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. If I'm considered a genius for advancing from the 5th to the 6th turn, then what about you who went from refining the orifice to the 7th turn of mana in just 1 month? Even if you are a genius from an aristocratic family or a senior sect, it's just like this, right? In fact, it is indeed similar to them. According to King Gaian, compared with some real monsters, I'm actually a little slower. Thinking so in his heart, Zhao Chen took out a pearl from the Fengyuan hemming ring and said with a smile, with this thing, Sister Hongxia can also experience the happiness of a child from an aristocratic family. The pearl is exquisitely shaped, full and round, and stores a huge amount of true energy inside, and it is extremely pure. Yan Hongxia had limited knowledge and did not recognize it for a while, looking at Zhao Chen in confusion. This is a Zhao pearl, which is made of the true essence left by the mermaid after her death. It is enough to make your magic power reach the peak of the 6th turn. If there is no bottleneck between the 6th turn and the 7th turn, maybe you can directly enter the 7th turn. Zhao Chen stuffed the Zhao pearl into Yan Hongxia's hand. This is the first gift for you. Zhao pearl. So this is the Zhao pearl. Yan Hongxia's eyes were bright, and her eyes were full of surprise when she looked at the pearl. Once this pearl is refined, it can at least save her several months, or even a year. Of course, if they practice dual cultivation, it will save a month. Seeing Yan Hongxia's happy look, Zhao Chen also curled his lips and took out the magical artifact purple jade god-breaking hairpin that Hao Shangxing gave him not long ago, and the white jade 36 methods he got from the worry-free cave heaven. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 506, Red Clouds Reflect the Morning Light. 36 white jade methods are the inheritance of the bone demon lineage of the heavenly demon sect. Zhao Chen had only obtained 12 of them before, corresponding to several mid-grade magical powers such as bone origin magic fire and white jade reflecting clouds formation. The related spells that can condense the first grade magical power formless clouds and clouds golden pill, the second grade magical power cloud sword immortal clothes and the third grade magical power 10,000 bones demon god were searched out by Master Chuyu from the soul of Bei Shixing, the leader of the White Jade sect. These spells are inherited from the Cloud Shadow sect and many of them have only changed their names. For example, the Jade Light Net spell that constitutes the 4th grade magical power White Jade Reflecting Clouds formation is actually the Zhaoguang Net recorded in the Clouds and Clouds Pill book of the Cloud Shadow sect. It can be said that Yan Hongxia, who has already mastered many spells in the Clouds and Clouds Pill book, can almost seamlessly connect with the 36 White Jade methods. The only pity is that the first grade magical power formless clouds and clouds golden pill not only requires 9 life spells, but also if there is no corresponding position to give the law perception, the required gangsha key is extremely difficult to find, and it is almost impossible to gather them. But even so, this White Jade 36 methods is also a method that directly points to the top grade magical power. Coupled with the magical power artifact purple jade divine hairpin that Zhao Chen took out, this gift is not cheap. It was so expensive that it completely exceeded Yan Hongxia's psychological expectations, causing her to open her mouth slightly, and her eyes also revealed a little panic. What she can do for Zhao Chen is far less than the value of these treasures, which makes her a little afraid to accept them. Zhao Chen naturally saw her concerns, so he smiled and comforted her. Don't worry, although this is a gift I brought to you, it is also a gift from the master. Your strength will be improved, so that you can better serve the master, and help me better. Yan Hongxue pursed her lips, knowing that even if these things were really rewards from the master, they were most likely obtained by Zhao Chen for herself. She couldn't help but feel a little moved, and at the same time she made a certain resolution. So, she threw away the last burden in her heart, took the jade slip with the method engraved on it, and looked at it carefully. After half an hour, she withdrew her spiritual consciousness and said thoughtfully, although their formless cloud golden pearl is difficult to achieve, I have already cultivated the most critical prerequisite spell cloud feather clothes of the second grade magical power cloud sword fairy clothes. Although their method contained in Cloud Sword Fairy Clothes is not very compatible with my temperament, and it is not suitable as the foundation for promotion to Dongsun, but this magical power does not conflict with the Li family's '5e Emperor's Chaos True Sword magical power. The combination of the two may not be able to take a new path in the future. Don't look at Yan Hongxue as only a cultivator at the level of Mana and Gangsha, but because she could only obtain the method of Red Emperor Yang Yuan sword from the Li family at the beginning, she began to think about the path that suits her very early. She even ambitiously wanted to create her own magical power with the Red Emperor Yang Yuan sword as a core. Now that she has the support of the master, and has many exercises to refer to, her vision will naturally not be limited to magical power. It is normal for her to start dreaming about Dongsun. Sister Hongxue is really ambitious. Hearing this, Zhao Chen secretly sighed, and then his heart moved slightly, and asked the question he had just observed. Why haven't you cultivated your Huangdi Zongsu sword yet? But you haven't found the required evil spirit? Seeing the question, Yan Hongxue came back to her senses, shook her head with an unnatural expression and said, no, I have found the wood to kill an evil, not long after I came to Jinsao. The reason why it hasn't been cultivated yet is for another reason. What's the reason? Zhao Chen asked curiously. Yan Hongxue did not answer immediately, but changed the subject with a somewhat erratic look in her eyes. Didn't you say you brought me 4 gifts? There are only 3 of them. What about the last one? As she spoke, she had already inserted the purple jade god-breaking hairpin into her bun, replacing the original golden hairpin sword. Now, the sentence in her poem Golden Hairpin turns into sword and spits out red clouds has to be changed to purple hairpin. Seeing the strangeness on Sister Hongxue's face, Zhao Chen's eyes turned, and combined with some characteristics of the Li family's 5 emperors paying homage to the truth sword art, he instantly figured out why she didn't cultivate the Huangdi Zongsu sword key. Because it is different from the concept of 5 emperors paying homage to the truth and the great supernatural power, that the 5 emperors paying homage to the truth are equal and respect the beauty of the great Dao. The Li family's 5 emperors paying homage to the truth sword respects the yellow emperor, and uses 1 emperor to rule the 4 emperors. This requires that the essence of Huangdi Zongsu sword key must be higher than the other 4 emperors sword key. But the problem is that, because of the previous dual cultivation with Zhao Chen, whether it is Red Emperor nourishing essence, Black Emperor circulating blood, or Green Emperor protecting soul, White Emperor serving soul, the essence has been improved, and it is difficult to be suppressed by the newly cultivated Yellow Emperor Zongsu. If you rashly accept it as your life spell, there is a high probability of 5 emperors unbalanced and the risk of going astray. It is actually very simple to solve this problem. Just make the Yellow Emperor Zongsu sword key more essential. And how to make the Yellow Emperor Zongsu sword key more essential? Naturally, make it closer to the true meaning of Teichu. In other words, as long as Yan Hongxue truly practices dual cultivation with Zhao Chen when condensing the Yellow Emperor Zongsu sword key, so that the true essence and spiritual consciousness of both parties blend more deeply with each other, all problems will be solved. Yan Hongxue obviously thought of this, and her expression was a little strange, and she talked about something else. Zhao Chen, who had figured this out, raised the corners of his mouth, and responded to Yan Hongxue's question in the form of a rhetorical question. Isn't the 4th gift right in front of you? He paused, suddenly leaned close to Yan Hongxue's ear, and laughed softly. A gift that can help you condense the mana seed of Huangdi Zongsu sword key. Do you like it? Hearing these ambiguous words, Yan Hongxia's face was immediately covered with red clouds, but she did not refute, but raised her head to meet Zhao Chen's smiling eyes, nodded seriously and said, "I like it." Then, the two of them looked at each other, and the cold air of Beating County could not block the scorching breath, and the distance between them was getting closer and closer. Suddenly, their figures disappeared, leaving only a Feng'an ring. It soon turned into an inconspicuous stone, and merged into the ruins of the manor. Time passed, but before Zhao Chen and Yan Hongxia appeared again, this ancient manor welcomed 3 uninvited guests again. These 3 people, 2 men and 1 woman, dressed like people from the martial arts world, but it was obvious that the woman with a veil, and whose face could not be seen clearly, was the leader. Yan Hongxia should have left. "You guys quickly check around to see what changes have taken place here. We deliberately showed up to lure her here, just to see if her arrival would reveal an unknown side of this ancient manor." Chapter 507 Good News. Together we study the sutra of the immortal couple, and our souls and spirits merge into one. Our bodies and spirits blend. The red-crowned sparrow comes to serve outside the door, and the purple-scaled snake comes to greet it in the garden. The red clouds are shining before the tide, and the morning sun is booming. What are the fish, water, paint and glue like? They fly across the sky and enter the great purity. In the space inside the wind and cloud harmony ring, Zhao Chen looked at Yan Hongxia, who was connected to his aura, and entered the sage time. Seriously speaking, his initial relationship with Sister Hongxia was not very friendly, and he was half forced by her to complete the task. This was also the main reason why I asked for her ownership when I rescued her from the strange domain. Of course, at that time, I was more greedy for her true energy, to enhance my own true energy. Who would have thought that after several imperfect double cultivations, our relationship became closer and closer, and now it has really reached the last step. To say that I like Yan Hongxia less than Fei Meng, but she has other emotions that I don't want to give up. Possessiveness, fantasy about the heroine in the previous life, or a strange sense of revenge. It seems that there is a little bit of it. Just when Zhao Chen analyzed his heart and tried not to make himself look so scumbag, Yan Hongxia, who was originally heroic but now flushed, also recovered from her absent-minded state. She exuded a lazy aura, leaning on Zhao Chen's arms like a little bird. Even though she had just practiced the dual cultivation, and with the help of the true essence and the mermaid pearl, her cultivation had broken through the bottleneck and reached the 7th level of magic power. Even though her Huangdi Zongsu sword ki was also cultivated, the 5 Emperor's sword ki flowed in her body, making the inner world stronger and stronger, and making her soul and spirit more active. But Yan Hongxia still felt very tired, so tired that she didn't even want to move her fingers, and could only let Zhao Chen, who had also come to his senses, mess with her, especially on both sides of the middle dungeon. Fortunately, this time he didn't use some kind of devil sect secret method to mess around. After a long time, Yan Hongxia, who had recovered some strength, couldn't bear it anymore, and said in a slightly hoarse voice, "Zhao Chen, that's enough. Our dual cultivation is to improve our cultivation, not to immerse ourselves in this kind of thing." After Zhao Chen rubbed her for the last time, he took back his messy hand and asked with a smile, "Sister Hongxia, don't you like it?" Yan Hongxia glanced at him. Her eyes were really charming and full of amorous feelings. Speaking of which, although Yan Hongxia's appearance was slightly inferior to Zhen Qingyan, she was also a rare beauty, and the heroic spirit on her body was a plus. Especially when her heroic appearance was completely restrained, and she showed her charming side for just one person. It was even more difficult to control herself. Just when Zhao Chen was about to make a move again, Yan Hongxia had already broken away from his arms, and quickly put on the clothes that had been prepared in the palace, and said angrily, "Zhao Chen, you have just broken through to the 8th level of magic power. You don't think about stabilizing your realm, but just think about this kind of thing. Aren't you afraid of going astray? Although others say that you got the inheritance from the happy bodhisattva, I know that your foundation is actually the spiritual key of the 5 immortals. The real method of dual cultivation is naturally to benefit both parties, and thanks to Yan Hongxia's union, Zhao Chen finally reached the 8th level of magic power, saving half a month's work. Less than 5 months after crossing, he had already broken into the 8th level. This speed of cultivation had actually surpassed most of the core disciples of the aristocratic families in the upper sects. Only a few evil spirits could match it. Knowing that Yan Hongxia was just shy and worried about him and was not really resisting getting close to him, Zhao Chen smiled and said, "Don't worry, I know what's going on. Nothing will go wrong." After all, he had long since passed the bottleneck of the 8th level. It was just that he lacked accumulation, and he did not need to deliberately stabilize his realm. "It's good that you know what's going on." Yan Hongxia nodded slightly at first, then turned her head away, not looking at Zhao Chen, and only stammered, You put on your clothes first." Even though the relationship between the two sides had made a substantial breakthrough, she still felt extremely shy. Zhao Chen chuckled, but did not continue to tease Sister Hongxia. He opened his arms, and the Liangai Taoist robe flew over by itself, turning into inner and outer clothes, and was put on him. After doing all this, Zhao Chen said with a smile, "You have already accepted the gifts. Now do you want to hear the 2 good news I bring?" Hearing this, Yan Hongxia calmed down, and her brain started working again. She said thoughtfully, "One of the good news is that Zieling is rescued, right? So smart." Zhao Chen praised, and then asked, "Did Zieling use the 1000-mile sound transmission spell to inform you?" 1000-mile sound transmission is one of Li Zieling's innate spells, which comes from the gift of Mahoraga. Yan Hongxia was not surprised that Zhao Chen could guess that Li Zieling sent a sound transmission to her. She was concerned about another thing. "Zieling? You call her Zieling too? Shouldn't you call her mother?" Yan Hongxia was actually a little ashamed of having crossed the line with her friend's stepson. She didn't know how to face her friend, so she was very surprised to hear Zhao Chen calling Li Zieling like that. "Because I don't plan to recognize Zhao Song as my father anymore." Zhao Chen shook his head and told him what happened in the mist of history before, minus the part about Fei Meng. Yan Hongxia learned about the general situation of the Chijin Mountain incident through Li Zieling's long-distance voice transmission a few months ago, but she didn't expect that the masterminds behind the scenes were actually Li Hu and Zhao Song. How could they do such a cruel thing? Just because of an illusory treasure? It's really crazy. No wonder Zhao Chen didn't even want to recognize his father. Yan Hongxia sighed, looking at Zhao Chen with pity in her eyes, wishing she could hold him in her arms and comfort him. But thinking that the consequences would probably make her collapse again, she hesitated again and again, and decided to forget it today. But soon, she thought of another thing, half curious and half trying to change the subject. "So the benefactor mentioned in Zieling's voice transmission is actually you, Zhao Chen. By the way, she seems to be waiting to reunite with Xiaomian and Xiaoxi. Where did you hide them?" "They are here." Zhao Chen raised his lips, and seeing Yan Hongxia's suddenly panicked face, he added maliciously, "But she has been sleeping all the time." Yan Hongxia's face was very wonderful, with emotions such as shame, embarrassment, and panic alternating, and she finally relaxed after listening to Zhao Chen's explanation. Then, she snorted, slapped Zhao Chen hard, and said angrily, "Don't make such a joke." Of course, she felt that the hard slap was actually more like a lover's coquetry in Zhao Chen's eyes. In order to cover up her previous gaffe, Yan Hongxia had to forcefully change the subject. "What's the second good news?" "The second good news is that the remnants of the Xingguan temple you are tracking have fallen into the trap." Zhao Chen narrowed his eyes and said, "You mean Danju, and 7 Light Magic Banner Yang Zicheng and Ice and Snowblade Feng Sheng? Where are they?" Yan Hongxia asked in surprise. "They are in the ruins of the manor where we stayed before. Or rather, the Shen family manor left over from ancient times. Kavenka is so powerful, so much for now. I have to sort out the plot." Chapter 508, The Purpose of Xingguan Temple. The moment he came to Yan Hongxia through the Black Domain, Zhao Chen, as the Star World Collector, discovered that she was in the Shen family manor, where he and Fei Meng had protected Zhang Yunlu and the historical mist. The reason why its backyard has been immortal for tens of thousands of years is that it was eroded by the weird power of the strange domain that had once transformed into Mist Shen. The entrance and exit of the Black Domain would be opened here, perhaps both a coincidence and also attracted by a certain fate. After discovering that he had revisited his old place and learned that Yan Hangsha had tracked the remnants of the Xinjiang temple here, Zhao Chen roughly guessed the purpose of the three Danju. You know, Fei Meng was hunted down by the killer, sent by the Xinjiang temple after the two of them opened the Chenlu Villa and Fei Meng received some kind of gift from it. The turning point of Zhang Yunlu's fate in ancient times was in this abandoned villa. Fei Meng once revealed that, if we had not entered the historical mist, saved Zhang Yunlu, and taken Miss Shen away, then they would have become one of the reasons for the fall of the six-time Bodhisattva body, and turned into the original demon of Guanyin. Such historical changes would inevitably alarm the top leaders of Xinjiang Temple, and the gift Fei Meng received in Chenlu Villa obviously exposed some information, which led to her being hunted down. Fortunately, the Great Xia realm is protected by the Zhaoshan star map. Xinjiang Temple can only deploy very little power, and even has to seek help from killer organizations such as Yunzi. In addition, Fei Meng has many backups, otherwise it would be difficult to deal with. Think about it carefully. Before and after Fei Meng entered Shuzhou, King Qin suddenly joined forces with King Shu to raid the Xinjiang Temple base in Shuzhou. Although this was his layout for Minghan Gaiyu, it may not be the handicraft of the one who manipulated the fate of Fei Meng and me. He is very likely using the arrangements of other beings to achieve his own goals, so as to achieve the effect of helping Fei Meng and me, and hiding our true identities. Just like the young master of the Meng family had to return to the family after the sword fighting competition. It seems to have nothing to do with me, but it directly eliminated my troubles. If it is really as I guessed, then such an existence is really terrifying. Facing Yan Hangsha's puzzled eyes, Zhao Chen did not explain too much, just smiled and said, their target is this manor, or the strange domain hidden in the backyard of this manor. So although the three people of Danju have temporarily left here, because of your tracking, they will definitely come back. And in fact, they have already come back when the two of us were practicing dual cultivation. But what they don't know is that the strange domain here entered the Xingcha with Miss Shen in ancient times, and they are destined not to find any traces. As for why they didn't just kill Yan Hangsha, but hide from her instead, first, they probably didn't have absolute certainty, and second, they came to find something, and didn't want to attract too much attention. Once Yan Hangsha is killed, not to mention that the death of a deputy envoy of Ko Zhao will make the Daoguan office furious, just based on her relationship with Zhao Chen, many magical powers will surely come, and the three Danju may not even be able to escape at that time, let alone complete the task of finding things. Danju, Seven Lights Magic Banner Yang Zicheng and Ice and Snow Cold Blade Feng Sheng are all outside this magical weapon. When Yan Hangsha mentioned this, she perked up, then frowned and asked in confusion, since this abandoned manor is their target, why did they lure me here on purpose? Even if it's playing tricks under the lamp, there are many villages nearby, so there is no need to choose this place, right? I hadn't figured this out before. But after collecting information from you, Sister Hangsha, I found some clues. Zhao Chen touched his chin and replied with a smile. Although he had the ownership of Yan Hangsha, he didn't give her to Xingcha after all, so he could only know the things that Yan Hangsha knew. He was powerless to do anything about the secrets that even she herself didn't know. Collecting information. Yan Hangsha was stunned for a moment, and when she figured out what this meant, her cheeks were immediately covered with red again. She spat and said, your ability is not serious. I'm actually very curious, why is it always used in strange places? Zhao Chen muttered, this is obviously a very serious ability. Because you are a little pervert. Hearing the mumbling, Yan Hangsha thought of what happened to him just now, and her legs trembled and weakened. She calmed down, brought the topic back on track, and asked curiously, what did you collect from me? Don't you know what you picked? Zhao Chen replied subconsciously in his heart, but on the surface he said seriously, there is a certain weird mark buried in your body. It makes it easy for you to induce the weird domain. And the three people of Danju are looking for the weird domain. They lured you here, probably to take advantage of this special thing about you. That's right. According to the statistics of the Taoist office, people who have encountered weird are often more likely to encounter similar things again than others. This mark should be the weird that Sister Hangsha was marked by when she escaped from Bingquan town at night and fell into the weird domain. Even if she was rescued by Wang Daoye, It never dissipated. However, if you really enter the Xingcha, there is a high probability that the mark can be erased. Yan Hongxia has been a Taoist official for many years. Even if her ability to handle cases is average, she has a lot of experience. She immediately thought of the past that led her to join the master and then fall into the clutches of Zhao Chen. Although judging from the result, this is not a bad thing. Is there any way to eliminate it? Yan Hongxia frowned and asked. When she thought about being marked as weird, she felt creepy and uncomfortable. Of course there is, but it can only be suppressed for the time being. If you want to completely eliminate it, you have to wait until I upgrade my magical power, Zhao Chen said confidently. After all, the great magical power of 5 emperors paying homage to the truth is best at removing external pollution. And Sister Hongxia's situation is much lighter than Meng Hongxiu's. That's good. Yan Hongxia breathed a sigh of relief. She had no doubt that Zhao Chen could be promoted to a magical power. She just thought it was natural and would not let her wait too long. This is indeed good news. After arresting these 3 people, I can return to human and visit Zieling. By the way, she has suffered so much betrayal and suffered a lot. She must need comfort. Yan Hongxia sighed and wanted Zhao Chen to let her go and capture the 3 people. If it was a night ago, she would not have been so sure. But now that her magic power has broken into the 7th level, and she has a magical weapon, she feels that she can do it. No, wait a little longer. Chapter 509, the Che family's legitimate daughter? What are we waiting for? Yan Hongxia asked in confusion. There were only 3 Gangsha realm cultivators, and they should not have any resistance in front of Zhao Chen. Or was there something on them that Zhao Chen was concerned about? Wait for King Gan to come and use the dream of the goddess of beauty to seal off the heart realm. Zhao Chen explained with a smile. These 3 remnants of the Xingyan temple have been able to escape from the encirclement and suppression many times, and there is a high probability that they have the means to travel in the heart realm. We must be prepared in advance. As early as when he and Yan Hongxia entered the Wind and Cloud Harmony Ring, he sent a message to the Yinling Saint Konglin through the Dairi crossing chariot and asked her to take a message to Qinsheng. As one of the incarnations of Fei Meng, Qinsheng knew about it, which meant that King Gan also knew about it. However, Zheng King Gan had just received a mission from the family to go south, and it was too far away from Jinzhou. Even with the magical power of being able to quickly transfer between water systems, it would still take a long time to reach Lunte. King Gan. Sakura Dragon Fairy. Hearing Zhao Chen calling her so intimately, Yan Hongxia pursed her lips and glanced at the man closest to her with resentment, but she didn't say much in the end. Some things, even if you want to fight, are not now. This is also one of the motivations for her to improve her strength. And Yan Hongxia also quite agrees with what Zhao Chen said just now. After all, the 3 Dinju are really good at escaping. She is sure to defeat them, or even kill them, but if they want to run, she can't do anything. But Sakura Dragon Fairy can help him, but I can't. I'm really unwilling. Zhao Chen didn't notice Yan Hongxia's hidden thoughts. After all, he couldn't use ownership to turn over the others' thoughts all the time, right? Seeing that Yan Hongxia also decided to wait, he simply took her to visit her younger brother and sister who were sleeping in other rooms. Speaking of which, the reason why these 2 little guys are sleeping until now is not because Zhao Chen did anything, but because Zhao Song fed them some medicine in advance. The potion is actually a kind of foundation building spirit liquid that can strengthen the body, strengthen the soul, and improve the quality of muscles and bones. In the eyes of those so-called questioning the mysterious warriors, it can be regarded as a priceless treasure. Its only side effect is that it will make people sleep for 7 days, and no matter what happens during this period, they cannot wake up. This potion is probably Zhao Song's last bit of mercy, allowing his children to die without feeling and avoid pain. Of course, if you think about it in a darker way, it may also be that this potion is used to improve the quality of Zhao Zi and Zhao Mian's soul, blood, and bones, making it easier to make a key. Seeing the state of the 2 little guys, Yan Hongxia frowned and said worriedly, Zia is fine, but Miana is not even 1 year old. This kind of tonic may bring him a great burden. I know, but the potion has taken effect, and there is not much we can do now. Fortunately, they are both of the bloodline of the red-bearded dragon, so there is no need to worry too much. Zhao Chen responded simply, especially his younger brother, who was not obvious in the historical myths before, but when he returned to reality, his luck soared to the level that only ordinary Gangsha monks have. It is said that the Son of Luck is like a supernatural power monk with calamity. Once it is overcome, the luck will increase exponentially. It seems that this is the case with my younger brother. Just as Zhao Chen was thinking and taking Yan Hangxia to visit the palace in the Wind and Cloud Harmony Ring, his footsteps suddenly stopped. Because he had received the news from Konglin that Qin Sheng had relayed that Zheng Qingyan had arrived at the abandoned manor of the Shen family and blocked the Heart Realm here. Yan Hangxia was also very smart. Seeing Zhao Chen stop, she immediately guessed the reason. But Sakura Dragon Fairy is here? Yes, you can go out and capture the 3 remnants of the evil cult. Zhao Chen nodded and replied. As for the 3 Gangsha monks, he really couldn't get up the interest to take action, so he decided to support Sister Hangxia and block the escape route of the other party in reality. Yan Hangxia had no objection to this. She had just made a great improvement and was eager to test her strength. So, when Danju, Yang Zicheng and Feng Sheng were searching the ruins of the Shen family's house inch by inch, a figure wearing a red flying fish official uniform suddenly appeared in front of them. After learning that Zhao Chen liked her wearing this, Yan Hangxia deliberately changed it. As for the coldness of Jin Zhao, that was a small problem. Seeing Yan Hangxia appear, Danju had almost no hesitation and took out a crystal pendant from the storage bag at the first time. She shook the pendant lightly, and the figures of the 3 people suddenly became illusory, as if they were about to merge into a dream world. But at this moment, their figures were blocked by an equally dreamy bubble. With a pop, the figures of Danju, Yang Zicheng and Feng Sheng quickly became clear, and the previous illusory feeling was gone. Oh no, there is an ambush, and the Heart Realm is blocked. Danju's voice was a little anxious, but not panicked. Upon hearing this, Yang Zicheng, the 7 light magic banners, had a black light in his eyes. 7 magic banners suddenly appeared and formed a formation. At the same time, countless ghosts swarmed out of them and pounced on Yan Hangxia. As a ruthless person who enslaved his enemies, his actions always came before his words. On the other side, Feng Sheng, the ice and snow cold blade, was also cold-tempered. He drew out the long sword with the same name as his nickname, and the curved reliefs on both sides of the blade lit up with white light and poured into the ground. This was not the first time Yan Hangxia had fought with these 2 people. She knew how difficult they were, but her most skilled Red Emperor Yang Yuan Sword Qi was the nemesis of ghosts and ice. With Zhao Chen's support, she was not afraid at all. She saw her fingers forming a sword and stretched forward. A stream of red sword energy met the ghosts that pounced on her and instantly swallowed the dozens of ghosts who were in the front. At the same time, the Huangdi Zhangsu Sword Qi cooperated with the innate magic Yangshi Feather Clothes to suppress the external evil and resist the invasion of ice that suddenly emerged from the ground. Before the Huangdi Zhangsu Sword Qi was cultivated, Yan Hangxia still had some difficulty in dealing with the opponent's magic, but now she is invincible. Therefore, she naturally would not be satisfied with just defense, so a pearl hairpin flew up from the head of this Hangxia sword, emitting a burst of purple rays of light, and instantly broke through the formation formed by the 7 magic banners, and directly hit the Danju who was protected by the 2 Gangsha perfection monks. Magic power magic weapon. Seeing the rays of light approaching, Danju just sighed slightly, but there was no fear on her face. Then, an ancient book suddenly appeared above her head. One of the pages was opened, emitting a little starlight, and it was neither easy nor difficult to block the purple rays of light. The Che families. Xiandi Qinshan calendar. A line of introduction slowly emerged in Zhao Chen's Dangzu eyes. This so-called Danju is not the real Danju, but the legitimate daughter of the Che family? Chapter 510 Miss Shen. Since he is not a real collector yet, Zhao Chen can only see a limited introduction at present, but he still peeked into her origin from the book that the woman offered. Because this Xiandi Qinshan calendar is the life magic weapon of Che Zun, a general of the Zhao army who once fought against Zhao Song in the northwest more than 8,000 years ago. Che Zun played the piano for Zhao Song Tezu in Songhuang Mountain to block the attack, which led to the defeat of the human battle. Soon after, the Great Zhao was annexed by the Great Song. But the Che family did not resist to the end, but surrendered to the Great Song. Xiande Zenran Chezun was no exception. But after the Great Xia Emperor swept across the world and destroyed the Great Song, he bloodbathed the direct lineages of the two clans, leaving only the collateral branches. For example, the Zhao family of Bingquan Town and the Che family of Human originated from this, and they have long been insignificant. However, as far as Zhao Chen knows, the direct inheritance of the Che family is similar to the bloodline sorcerer in the West. The life magic weapon left by Chezun must be used by the direct lineage. Therefore, Zhao Chen speculated that the so-called Danju in front of him might be more authentic than Che Yugong's bloodline, and was a true descendant of the Che family. I just don't know why she joined the Xingyan temple. Or, more than 8,000 years ago, the Great Zhao was supported by the source of the heart demon. However, a legitimate daughter of the Che family is willing to disguise herself as a maid of a branch family and marry Li Yunfeng as a dowry. She must have a big plan. I thought before that she was aiming for the Yangxiu crown, but I'm afraid it's not accurate. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen saw that after Danju used the Xiande Qinshan calendar to block the purple glow, he did not linger in the fight. Instead, he took advantage of Yan Hongxia's lack of time to launch a new move and pulled Yang Zicheng and Feng Shengfei back. The Xiande Qinshan calendar above his head also turned a new page. The next moment, spring thunder sounded, and the figures of the three people blurred in an instant and were about to disappear. But at this moment, there was a beautiful sound of the piano, sometimes as fast as thousands of troops galloping, sometimes as slow as a gurgling stream, sometimes as low and euphemistic as whispering, and sometimes as high and straight as a towering mountain. It not only eliminated the sound of spring thunder, but also made the three Danju appear again. Seeing this, Yan Hongxia, who had suffered a small loss before, was unwilling to give up, and immediately let her sword energy and magic tools entangle again. This forced Yang Zicheng to set up the Seven Lights Demon banner again to form a formation. While Danju was suppressing the backlash, she frowned and looked at the source of the zither sound. I saw a handsome young man sitting on the ground outside the moon gate in the backyard, and the beautiful zither sound was produced by the terrifying ancient zither in his hand. Is this a variation of Wuang soul capture? No, it is also mixed with a bit of the charm of demon suppression golden seal. Is it the inheritor of the two great magical powers of five emperors paying homage to the truth and demon king binding body? At this moment, in this situation, she couldn't help but think of the past, when her ancestors stationed their troops outside the Jade Gate, and were blocked by the Song Emperor alone and his zither. Although the scale of the battle here cannot be compared with that of her ancestors, the opponent is obviously far less powerful than Zhao Song Tezu. Danju was thinking, while using her mind to manipulate the magic weapon, helping her two subordinates resist the invasion of Yan Hongxia's magical weapon. But this is not a long-term solution. After all, she is only at the Gangsha realm and cannot exert too much power of the magic weapon. Not to mention that she has to endure a huge backlash every time she uses it. The heart realm is blocked, and the actual escape route is blocked by this young man. The preparation time for teleportation is too long. So, we can only try the black domain. Fortunately, this courtyard has been eroded by the weird domain, so it is easier to open the black domain passage. Although the road to the black domain is a life-threatening one, we can only take the risk now. Danju remained calm. She assessed Zhao Chen's true combat power and sensed the level of the person who blocked the heart realm. Finally, she had to admit that the black domain might be the only way to escape. Once she made up her mind, she would never drag her feet. She immediately let the Xiande Qinshan calendar quickly turn back and finally stopped at a page with a black circle mark. In an instant, a double door appeared in the void. The door was golden yellow and not closed tightly, leaving a gap large enough for one person to enter and exit. Danju gave Feng and Yang a look and then squeezed into the gap first. Feng Sheng and Yang Zicheng immediately understood, and each of them took a Red Emperor Yang Yuan sword key to block Yan Hongxia's subsequent attack, successfully helping Danju to cover the rear, and they also threw themselves into the door at the last moment. The golden double door was also closed immediately and disappeared completely before a purple glow descended. Seeing this, Yan Hongxia snorted coldly, not satisfied with the result. You know, after the real double cultivation not long ago, she felt that she had improved a lot. Letting the other party run away like this made her look a little embarrassed. But at this time, Zhao Chen, who had put away the Taishi Cheyenne Makin, walked up to her and comforted her with a smile. Don't worry, she can't run away. Can't run away. After repeating it, Yan Hongxia's eyes lit up and blurted out, do you have any other backup? As I said before, this place has been invaded by weirdness. Zhao Chen said confidently. Probably because before Sister Hongxia fought with the 3 remnants of the Xinjiang temple, he released the weird Miss Shen who was invading this place. Therefore, as soon as the Danju entered the Black Domain, before it had time to sight its mystery and danger, it was swallowed up by the weirdness, transformed by Miss Shen. The 7 Lights Demon Banner and the Ice and Snow Cold Knife were also not spared. In a small academy, an old man with white hair and beard stopped teaching and asked the students to begin to comprehend the subtle meanings of the scriptures on their own. He walked out of the classroom, paced to a small tree, closed his eyes and sensed it. After a moment, the old man opened his eyes and said to himself silently, Chaden Ping was caught. He was caught by a Taoist official at the level of magical power while carrying the magic weapon of the Che family. It's really. Fortunately, Chaden Ping knows very little and won't reveal too much information. But if that Che Zun knew, I would have a hard time explaining it. Fortunately, after that guy achieved Shengsun, his real body can no longer enter the territory of Daxia. Thinking of this, he cast his gaze in the direction of Anai. The main soul of Mahoriji has fallen, and the barrier in the Yuan sect will not last long. In addition, the state of the great Bodhisattva in the Xinjiang temple has changed. Will the one in the east make a move? Once he makes a move, it will be my chance. Jin Cao, in the abandoned Shen family manor, Zhao Chen played with the ancient book that was originally in the hands of Danju and squinted his eyes. He thought, is this magic weapon a token to open the treasure of Che Zhao? This routine is a bit familiar. This was yesterday, and there is another tonight. Chapter 511. You know again. Danju, or Chaden Ping, and the other 2 were forced to use the Xian Dekinshan calendar to break the rules and escape from Miss Shen's strange domain soon after they fell into it. As a result, they were caught by Yan Hongxia who was waiting outside with the sunlight net spell. Chaden Ping wanted to continue to resist, but unfortunately most of her trump cards were lost in the strange domain, and she was unable to continue to activate the magic weapon. She could only watch the purple light approach her and completely suppress her and her 2 subordinates. After that, after the 3 were searched, Zhao Chen naturally took ownership with the 16 gold star Libra sword and prepared to split it up and sell it to the Dairi crossing chap. Chaden Chu aside, among her 2 subordinates, the inheritance of 7 stars magic banner Yang Zichen is quite historical. It is a fragment of the practice of a Dongzu and 2nd level real person among the casual cultivators 6,000 years ago, named Huangning's 7 stars disaster elimination divine mantra sutra, which can theoretically condense the 2nd grade magical power 7 stars great disaster elimination divine mantra. It is no wonder that after Yang Zichen obtained the fragments of this technique, he was coveted by many small and medium-sized sects and families in Shanzhou, and even suffered a tragic extermination. It is a pity that this inheritance is incomplete, otherwise Yang Zichen would not have to seek refuge with Li Yunfeng for the position in the Yangxiao crown. The technique of ice and snow cold blade Feng Sheng is relatively rough, and is pieced together from a variety of methods. It can be seen that Feng Sheng originally had the same plan as Sister Hongxia, wanting to create a new magical method by himself. Unfortunately, his talent and knowledge are insufficient. The combat power of his own technique is acceptable, but his understanding of Tao is far from enough. Seriously speaking, because he had obtained the Flying Snow Divine Sword Sutra passed down by the Feng family from Feng Wan, Zhao Chen could point out many mistakes and omissions in his technique from a high-level perspective. If he is given some time, the value of this so-called Ice and Snow Cold Blade manual can at least be increased by 300 to 500 star coins. In short, these 2 people together provided Zhao Chen with more than 13,000 star coins, most of which were spent on the Huangning's 7 stars disaster elimination mantra sutra, and the rest were not very valuable, especially since the souls of these 2 people had already withered. They were just tools in Chaden Ping's hands. the token to open the treasure, and also the carrier of the great supernatural power of Daozu and Crossing Yi. Zhao Chen played with the magic weapons Iron Deacon Shanli obtained from Che Dinping, and had great doubts about the so-called Chezhou treasure. After all, the Kaijin Mountain incident that he and Qi Fimeng had just solved not long ago was also a situation caused by a so-called treasure. Now there is another one. It is inevitable that people will suspect that someone is setting a trap again. At this time, Zheng Qingyuan also ended the blockade of the Heart Realm and revealed his figure. She glanced at Yan Hangsha, who was examining her, walked straight to Zhao Chen, and said calmly, "Fighting Stars Shift can record and store the magical powers encountered and return them at the right time, giving them a taste of their own medicine. And the upper limit is very high. Even a first-grade magical power can be returned. In the past, Che Zun relied on this magical power to be very powerful until he encountered Zhao Song Taizu's Demon King body restraint, which directly sealed the effect of Fighting Stars Shift, and he was finally defeated. That is to say, Che Dinping's cultivation is too low to fully master this treasure, otherwise your attacks can't hurt her at all." She paused here and continued, "In addition, there are rumors that a first-grade magical power in the upper part of the Book of Thieves is very similar to the effect of Fighting Stars Shift, and the Six Gates suspected that the real top leaders of the Thieves Gate might be the direct descendants of the Che family. But now it seems that there are some differences. Oh, by the way, the family mission I received recently is to investigate the magical power of the Dao men. What a coincidence." Hearing this, Zhao Chen's heart moved, and he asked in surprise, "Why is the Zheng family suddenly interested in the magical power of the Dao men?" The Zheng family has always been very concerned about the Dao men. After all, the essence of the Dragon King's Blessing Sutra is to steal power from the Dragon King. Even when making fun of himself, Zheng Qingyuan was still expressionless, and continued, "And this time it was because the Dunks and masters of several sects and families related to the Dao men, such as Ling Castle and the Bei family, disappeared at the same time, which may involve the secrets of the Dao men. So I was assigned this task. Of course, this is also an experience for me." Seeing that Zheng Qingyuan had taken away all of Zhao Chen's attention as soon as she arrived, and that they were getting more and more familiar with each other as they talked, Yan Hangsha pursed her lips and couldn't help but interrupt and asked, "Where exactly is the treasure of Chezhou?" Seeing the question, Zhao Chen shook his head and replied, "Che Dinping only knows that it is somewhere in the Heart Realm, but has no idea where exactly it is. This is also the biggest reason why she chose to join the Xingguang Temple. In addition, she pretended to be a maid and followed Miss Che to marry Li Yunfeng. In fact, she wanted to use the other party to get the opportunity to ask questions to the Cheyenne treasure mirror. Unfortunately, as Li Yunfeng's status plummeted due to offending Qingyuan, it was impossible for him to bring her into the Blessed Land, and her plan fell through. In order to get revenge, she instigated Li Yunfeng to hire someone to assassinate me." These are the contents that Zhao Chen saw from Che Dinping's memory. He could roughly sense the depressed mood of the other party, who had been planning for many years, but failed at the last moment. Especially when she tried her best to stay in Li Yunfeng's backyard after the Che family's young lady was divorced, but suddenly heard that Li Yunfeng had lost his power and could not bring outsiders into the Blessed Land. It was normal for her to vent her anger on Zheng Qingyuan. And she came to Jinsao to carry out the mission of Xingguang Temple this time, and it was also to accumulate merits and get the opportunity to use a certain divination treasure of Xingguang Temple. Zhao Chen added, "Since she thinks that the Cheyenne treasure mirror can answer, it means that the reality corresponding to the location of the treasure in the Heart World is in Ganzhou, or near Ganzhou." Zheng Qingyuan glanced at the still unconscious Che Dinping and said thoughtfully, "Perhaps we can fulfill her wish. Are you very interested in this so-called Chezhou treasure?" Zhao Chen was a little confused when he saw her so active. "You should be interested," Zheng Qingyuan corrected seriously, and then said meaningfully, "The Daozu and Crossing Yi magical power has a great relationship with the Star God. Maybe the complete version of the Senluo Wangxiang magical power you are looking for is also in this treasure. After all, the force that supported Chezhou behind the scenes back then was a branch of the Star Society." Hearing this, Zhao Chen was silent for a moment, looked into Zheng Qinggan's eyes, and asked, "What did you suddenly know? Or, which lady has become your incarnation again?" Chapter 512 Mu Family. It's no wonder that Zhao Chen thought too much. It was because Zheng Qinggan showed that she knew the inside story too obviously. And every time she showed similar behavior before, she basically had a new incarnation. Especially after returning Li Zieling's freedom, there happened to be a vacant incarnation quota. Guess. Zheng Qinggan's expression did not change at all, but a hint of smile flashed in her eyes. Can't say it out loud again. It seems that the identity of this incarnation is also very special. Zhao Chen nodded and stopped asking questions. Instead, he asked about the so-called Chazao treasure. Is there really a complete version of the Senluo Wangxiang magical power there? Zhao Chen has been coveting this top-grade magical power of the All-Stars gathering for a long time. It is a skill that he wants to try his best to obtain in his plan. I can only say that you underestimated Senluo Wangxiang. It is the foundation magical power of the All-Stars Association. Even Daozu and Crossing Yi is likely to be just a part of the evolution of this magical power. And the simplified version of Senluo Wangxiang that Ming Zuling learned can actually only be regarded as a partial manifestation of its universal power, but even so, it can be ranked as a third grade. Zheng Qinggan said, stretching out his hand and pointing, taking a jade token from the unconscious Chadenping, and then putting it into a bubble, and then continued, this token is of some help to my mission, and it is my reward for my help. Zhao Chen had identified it before, and knew that it was just an identity certificate of member of the Xingyan Temple. Although he didn't know what Qinggan wanted to do with it, he would not be stingy. He nodded slightly and said, take it. As for the matter of the magical power of Senluo Wangxiang, Zhao Chen had a clue in his mind after hearing Qinggan's detailed account, and did not ask any more questions. For an investigator, some things only require clues. Zheng Qinggan glanced at Yan Hongxia, who was unable to speak, and nodded to her. Then she turned back to Zhao Chen and said, I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. Be careful. As soon as the voice fell, her figure suddenly became transparent, turned into a pile of bubbles, and then disappeared. Seeing her leave, Yan Hongxia, who had been pursing her lips, relaxed. She walked forward, did not ask about the conversation that she did not understand, and only spoke carefully. Give me the magic weapons of Seven Lights, Demon Banner and Ice and Snow Cold Knife. I will take them to the Taoist office for inspection. Only after completing the task can I return to Ganzhou. After that, I will apply for traveling, collect the corresponding Gangsha key, and improve my strength as soon as possible. Why did he suddenly become so motivated? Feeling the meaning in Sister Hongxia's tone, Zhao Chen blinked, handed the two people's magic weapons to each other and said, I still have to go to the ancient monk's mausoleum unearthed in Lunte City not long ago. Maybe Sister Hongxia can return to human before me. After all, as an aid monk from another state, Sister Hongxia is eligible to apply for the teleportation array, and although her black domain channel is more convenient, it is definitely not as fast as teleportation. The tomb has been turned over countless times, and there is nothing left. Yan Hongxia said in surprise, and the owner of the tomb is at most a martial artist who refines the orifices. There should be nothing worth your attention. Hearing this, Zhao Chen shook his head, looked at the setting sun in the sky, and sighed. I just went to pay tribute to the old friend. Paying tribute to the old friend. Yan Hongxia looked at Zhao Chen's handsome profile and thought about something in her heart. Southwest, Yazhou, a small building facing the lake. Qi Fimeng stood by the window, looking at the crystal clear lake, wondering what she was thinking. After an unknown amount of time, accompanied by a fragrant breeze, the fairy King Qiang in a flowery dress appeared in the room. After being controlled by the imprisonment spell, the mind of this fairy from the flower god sect was completely imprisoned, and she became Fimeng's follower. Fairy King Qiang bowed slightly, handed over a letter with both hands, and the name of Fairy King Qiang was written on the cover. Qi Fimeng turned around, took the envelope casually, opened it and took a look. Then she said to herself with a smile, an invitation to the flower viewing banquet in half a year, and they specially included the Taizang golden lotus among the many exotic flowers and plants. It seems that what I did before did let her find out the clues. I just didn't expect that the Flower God sect also has a connection with that place. But this is an open conspiracy, because I have to go. After all, the Taizang Golden Lotus is indeed a must-have for me. She can see through my incarnation, and can also identify the people I control with my magical powers. Any of my hiding means are useless in front of her. Fortunately, she certainly didn't expect that I would have a helper to whom she could entrust such a secret. Thinking of the man who made her feel a little subtle, Qi Fimeng pouted first, then smiled and said to herself, but this time he guessed wrong. That was not the incarnation that I personally enlightened, but I snatched it from her. Jinsao, outside a small town with temporary houses in the south of Lunte City, Zhao Chen, who had changed his appearance, queued up to buy a ticket, and then passed through the city gate, and entered the town. Yes, because the ancient tomb of the ancient Tang dynasty was unearthed, and not many valuable items were found. This place has been transformed into a place similar to a tourist attraction, and only by buying a ticket can you enter the town. Of course, this rule is only valid for ordinary warriors and some low-level true key and refining monks. After all, if a master wants to enter, the town's armed forces cannot stop it. Fortunately, although this ancient tomb has some archaeological value, it does not attract real masters. The town is not big, but there are wine shops, tea houses, and all kinds of snack vendors. This desolate old beating is already quite prosperous. Unfortunately, such prosperity is limited after all. When the people who want to gamble their luck are disappointed and disperse, and when the archaeological team withdraws, this place will probably be demolished. Thinking of this in his heart, Zhao Chen was about to walk towards the entrance of the ancient tomb in the center of the town, but suddenly there was a commotion behind him. He did not look back, but just a slight sweep of his spiritual consciousness, and saw the source of the commotion. Outside the town gate, a golden light suddenly appeared. It first condensed into a line, and then the line continued to thicken, and expanded into a gate that opened in pairs. The next moment, the gate opened, and a luxurious carriage pulled by 4 demon horses slowly drove out from it, and stopped in front of the town. And a round Mu badge was engraved in a prominent position on the carriage. Mu's carriage? Why would it come to this remote place like Lunte? Zhao Chen frowned, feeling a bad premonition. Tomorrow I will resume 2 updates. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 513 Domineering. Moreover, the pattern on the surface of the golden double-leaf door that suddenly appeared was very similar to the one that Chadenping opened when she tried to escape through the black domain before. Could Chadenping still be related to the Mu family? But I didn't find any relevant content in her memory. No, it may be that she doesn't know. Thinking of this, Zhao Chen was shocked and quickly separated part of his spirit to enter the big sun star chariot and asked Yan Hongxia to only say that Feng Sheng and Yang Zichen were captured when she handed over and concealed the news that Chadenping was also killed. If there is really something on Chadenping that is worth the Mu family's attention, it can only be the magic weapon Xian Dikinshan calendar. In other words, the so-called Chazao treasure that can be opened by the Xian Dikinshan calendar. There was a problem with the calendar that Chadenping used to open the black domain to escape before, so it might be Dao Zuan crossing Yi from a cultivator of the Mu family. So, when she used this ability, the people of the Mu family sensed her approximate location and chased her. With this thought in mind, Zhao Chen stroked the wind and cloud harmony ring on his finger and sold Chadenping, who was imprisoned in it, directly into the star chariot. She was kept before, because the Xian Dikinshan calendar must be used by the direct descendants of the Che family, and she was wanted to be a tool. Since she might cause disaster, Zhao Chen would naturally not keep her. After dealing with Chadenping, Zhao Chen, who disguised his identity with the purple light ring, retreated to the sides of the road in the town, like other people in the martial arts world, and made way for the carriage pulled by 4 demon horses. But the carriage stopped at the gate of the town, and did not come in. However, Zhao Chen sensed a powerful divine consciousness sweeping across the entire town and lingered on everyone, especially women. This spiritual consciousness is much stronger than Master's, and it is almost as different from the main soul of Mahoraga. I'm afraid it is a big man who has stepped into the Shengsuan realm. I'm afraid the disguise on my appearance can't be hidden in his eyes. Fortunately, cultivators generally don't look at faces, but only recognize auras. Moreover, he focuses on checking female cultivators. Is he really targeting Che Danping? Zhao Chen's face showed a hint of anger as his thoughts raced, but he lowered his head tightly, not daring to reveal it. There were many people with similar expressions to him, all of whom were cultivators in the town, who had cultivated spiritual consciousness and were in the Manor and Gangsha realm. After all, being swept by spiritual consciousness like this is even more humiliating than stripping naked for people to watch at will. It's okay if ordinary warriors and cultivators in the Zenki realm can't detect it, but how can the Gangsha cultivators who can clearly sense it not be ashamed and angry? This new family's master is really overbearing. Or, he really cares about Che Danping and doesn't consider whether he will offend anyone. Fortunately, the magic tools and magic treasures on me are all in the Fengyun Hemming ring. This ring is very secretive. If it is not targeted, even the master cannot detect the clues. And after losing Che Danping as a positioning, it is highly likely that he will not focus on an ordinary ring. When Zhao Chen was thinking, the overbearing consciousness finally disappeared, and at the same time, all the cultivators with more than magic power in the town breathed a sigh of relief. In the carriage of the Mu family's carriage, an old man with white hair saw the young man sitting opposite him looking at him, and hurriedly leaned down and asked respectfully, "Did you find anything, sir?" The young man looked to be in his 20s, lazy and handsome, surrounded by a dozen beautiful women. "No, the Che family's daughter has probably left Lunte by other means," the young man said lightly. "How is it possible? That little bitch." The old man looked incredulous, but before he finished speaking, he saw the young man's eyes glanced at him without any emotion. Although he seemed to be casual, the old man immediately stopped talking and apologized. "I'm too outspoken. I hope you will punish me." "Oh, that's not necessary. The daughter of the Che family was still in the town in front of us before we came out of the Black Domain. I didn't even notice how she escaped. I didn't have much interest in the so-called Che's out treasure, but I tracked it down for your sake. But now, I'm a little interested." The young man narrowed his eyes and stretched out his fingers to count. After a moment, he didn't get any information and curled his lips again and said, "Things are getting more and more interesting. Which great evil level demon in the Xing'an temple personally helped her cover up the secret? Otherwise, after using the Black Domain channel and establishing a connection with me, she would not have been able to hide from my calculations." Having said that, the young man looked at the old man again and asked, "Do you know where she might appear?" The old man hesitated for a moment and finally nodded and said, "In any case, she has to go to the Che family's ancestral land to open the treasure. As for the location of the ancestral land, my branch knows it, but that little bitch may not. She has made many plans before, and it is likely that she wanted to divine or calculate the location of the ancestral land. In that case then we'll go to your Che family's ancestral land and wait for her." After the young man smiled, without any movement, a golden double door opened again in front of the carriage he was riding in. The 4 demon horses snorted in unison upon seeing this, and then pulled the carriage into the door. Watching the carriage re-enter the black area, Zhao Chen finally exhaled a breath of foul air. Only then did he realize that the clothes on his back were completely soaked with sweat. Because he was worried that the real person in the carriage would discover the flaw, he did not use the shield fear ability just now. The crisis has been temporarily overcome, but we can't take it lightly. There is a high probability that there are still spies from the Mu family in the town. If we run away directly at this time, it will arouse suspicion. Well, first go to the mausoleum to pay homage to the hero Gu according to the original plan, and then change our identity and leave reasonably. After making a plan, Zhao Chen walked along the street to the main gate of the mausoleum in the center of the town. It is called the door of the mausoleum, but after entering it, it is a room separated by a magic circle. Zhao Chen glanced at the magic circle and found that it had simple spying and disinfection functions. Is this to prevent any important items from being smuggled out? Protect the cultural relics by the way. After laughing in his heart, Zhao Chen walked through the magic circle and passed through a big hole behind it and entered the real mausoleum. This mausoleum was built according to the specifications of the founding County Duke of the Tang Dynasty. At least in my previous world, this specification corresponds to the founding County Duke. Hero Gu later did quite well. Zhao Chen thought after looking around. There is another chapter later, I must do it if I promise to update twice a week. Chapter 514 Goodbye Yun Lu. Since Gufeng's mausoleum has been developed into a tourist attraction and is blessed by a magic array, there is no need to worry about collapse. So Jianghu people like Zhao Chen can walk around in it at will, but they are not allowed to destroy it. Zhao Chen was an archaeologist in his previous life, and exploring mausoleums is his old profession, so even without a tour guide, he roughly figured out the status of the little cinnabar ghost Gufeng when he died. This bright and clear hero finally became a court hawk. Zhao Chen sighed in his heart, and had already walked to the stone tablet that made this place a laughingstock. Looking at the Battle of the Ruined Temple recorded above, and seeing his amazement at the power of the fire gun, Zhao Chen's thoughts seemed to travel through time and space, and return to the night of guarding the Star God Temple. Speaking of which, at that time, both he and Fei Meng were only true key realm cultivators. They were able to defeat and kill so many Jianghu masters, but they were just bullying the ancients, and did not understand the fire gun. However, just as he was lost in his memories, the surrounding scene suddenly changed. The stone men, stone beasts, stone pillars, etc. in the mausoleum disappeared, and even the other people and archaeologists disappeared without a trace, leaving only a stone tablet floating alone in a grey world. Then, a graceful and elegant woman slowly stepped in from the edge of the world and came to Zhao Chen, who was still a little dazed. She stretched out her white fingers and gently touched Zhao Chen's eyebrows. The latter suddenly woke up and regained his thoughts. Where is this? What happened to me just now? Zhao Chen looked at the woman in front of him who retracted her fingers, and he was surprised and helpless. I just came to pay tribute to the old friend. How could I encounter so many bad things? At this time, the woman's mouth curled up slightly and slowly said, Brother Zhao, long time no see. Don't panic, this is just a wisp of my residual soul. Call me Brother Zhao? Is this someone I know? Zhao Chen frowned and looked at the woman in front of him carefully. He felt that she looked very familiar. After a while, he said uncertainly, Zhang Yunlu. It was not that he didn't dare to recognize her. After all, the Zhang Yunlu he had seen was just a little girl of 14 or 15 years old, and this one was much more mature now. The woman did not answer. After hearing the three words Zhang Yunlu, she smiled and said, the password is correct. Then I can continue. My residual soul is just an image and can't survive to your time. So I don't have the ability to talk. She paused and continued, I left the stone tablet that will make future generations full of doubts in Uncle Gu's mausoleum, just to make it a joke and attract you. Brother Zhao, I want to ask you a favor. I don't know if you have found my arrangements in Chenlu Villa, Zhangzhou Palace, and Yunshan Star Garden. If you have found it, then Brother Zhao, you should have known my purpose. I want to change my fate again and escape from the inevitable death. Then, she roughly described the era she lived in and the difficulties she faced, which was the same as what Zhao Chen had said in the letter he had received from Chenlu Villa. Only at the end, she mentioned the location and approximate time of the birth of Chenlu Villa, Zhangzhou Palace and Yunshan Star Garden. Chenlu Villa has already been born, so I won't mention it. The closest one to the current time point is Zhangzhou Palace 3 months later. As for Yunshan Star Garden, it will take another 2 or 3 years to be born. The 16 golden stars Libra sword is placed in the Chenlu Villa. I wonder if the Star God relics are placed in the other 2 places. It's worth a look. Just as Zhao Chen thought of this, he saw Zhang Yunlu step forward, stretched out his hand to lift his chin, and said with a smile, although my residual soul is just an image, it should still have some power. I'll give it to you, Brother Zhao. As she spoke, she leaned forward, closed her eyes, and pressed her lips against Zhao Chen's. During this period, Zhao Chen was completely unable to move, and even thinking seemed to become difficult, let alone struggling and resisting. And soon, He didn't want to resist anymore. It wasn't because Zhang Yunlu's lips were so. The main reason was that a stream of extremely pure true energy entered his body, making him feel as if he was bathing in an ocean of vital energy, so comfortable that he almost cried out. After an unknown amount of time, when Zhao Chen recovered from that mysterious state, he suddenly realized that he had left that grey world and returned to the stone tablet in the real mausoleum, as if everything was a dream. Zhao Chen subconsciously touched his lips, feeling the residual warmth on them, knowing that it was not a dream. Didn't Zhang Yunlu practice the magical powers of 5 emperors paying homage to the truth and all world coming? How come her mana essence actually has the meaning of happy bodhisattva? While thinking this in his heart, Zhao Chen also checked the improvement of Zhang Yunlu's residual soul on himself. The mana improvement was limited, but the soul power increased by nearly 30%, which was not bad. But this is not as good as the last one. Is it really the method of the happy lineage? King Zhao, Meng's Horan Cave Heaven. Take Su Heart Sword. Meng Sichen was preparing to set off again after sending his own Nangsuan Zenrin Meng Wangling, who was severely injured, back to the family. But at this time, the family's Zenki Hall suddenly shook violently. Seeing this, Meng Sichen was a little confused, but he didn't care too much. After all, a small world connected to the Zenki Hall was imprisoned with the bodhisattva of the happy lineage, and this degree of vibration was common. I just don't know what it was this time. When Zhao Chen returned to the human Jindio martial arts hall, it was completely dark. As soon as he returned to his bedroom, the little black cat Gong Yun jumped into his arms. While letting him stroke her fur, she used the alphabet heart card to say, "Sixth brother sent a message that Ma Guanglian will visit tonight at chow time." Chow time. Can't this guy come once during the day? Every time he comes in the middle of the night. He is not afraid of encountering the strange domain. Zhao Chen complained helplessly. At this time, he suddenly remembered something and asked again, has the outer sect Deacon France of the Flower God sect been dealt with? He remembered that Gong Yun had borrowed the jade flute magic weapon from him before, and planned to use the hand of the clear sound sword of the Cui family to trick France Li into a big deal, but he didn't know if he succeeded. Little black cat Gong Yun rubbed his hand and responded with a scolding look. I was just about to tell you this. Are you interested in accompanying me to watch a live drama tomorrow? Chapter 515 Transaction. Sword of Clear Sound is the 13th son of the Cui family in Weizhou. He is known as the bitter tune of Golden Stone, the clear sound into the dark. Although the Cui family is only a family of prestige, Cui Zaheo's mother is a princess of the royal family, and she dotes on this youngest son the most. So he studied Shen Huang Baochen, one of the royal magic skills, and reached the realm of supernatural powers before the age of 20. He is the undisputed leader of the Cui family of this generation, surpassing his brother Cui Zish, the Sword of Plain Sound, who temporarily joined Ming Hongyu. In order to get rid of the pursuit of France, the outer gate deacon of the Flower God sect, Gong Yun intends to use the jade flute magic weapon obtained from the Z family of Black Wind Castle to deliberately cause a conflict between the two. She acted confident before, so Zhao Chen didn't ask much. Now it seems that it has reached the last step. Tomorrow afternoon, I will go to Wuai Alfang Market to perform with Qinsheng, Kang Lin and others. It seems that I can go to watch the play in the morning. It's just in time to cover up my speed. But where is Mr. Cui now? Will we expose ourselves if we go to see the show? Zhao Chen asked. Little black cat jumped onto his shoulder and followed with his inner voice. You really don't care about the news in Ganzhou. When Mr. Cui arrived in Zangai before, he caused quite a stir. After all, his identity, appearance, and cultivation are all outstanding, and he is not like the Sakura dragon fairy who seems to be standing in the clouds and is unapproachable, but he has received a lot of attention. After a pause, she continued, and he will be visiting Dangsha Garden tomorrow, and he will naturally meet France who refined his cousin into a flower slave. Although the Dangsha Garden is called a garden, it is built on the basis of an entire canyon. There are many pavilions and towers inside, but the beauty of the Dangsha landform cannot be concealed. It is one of the famous scenic spots in Ganzhou, and since it is a tourist attraction, it means that there are many people Even if the tourists are cleared in advance, the supporting staff and small vendors are countless, so naturally there is no need to worry about being exposed by watching the excitement. After Zhao Chen figured out the meaning of the little black cat's words, he nodded slightly and said, "Then I will accompany you to see it tomorrow." Firstly, he also wanted to see the demeanor of the contemporary genius. After all, he was not able to see the magical powers of the major sects and families fighting each other during the sword discussing conference, which was a pity. Secondly, since Gong Yun was going to watch the battle in person, there was a high probability that she had a reason to be there, and no matter how confident she was, there was a possibility of accidents, and his presence could be used as a layer of insurance. Facing the top grade magical power, he asked himself that, even if he couldn't beat it, he had the ability to escape. He guessed that Gong Yun had also considered this aspect when inviting him. The two chatted for a while, and as the night deepened, it was already past midnight. Gong Yun, who had turned back into human form, put on his clothes, and went to find Feng Wan, the Snow Eagle Sword. Zhao Chen also sent someone to call Ming Zuling, who had been living in the martial arts hall, and went to the small garden together. Since Zheng Qingyuan was not there, he naturally had to find another magical power to support the scene, so as to prevent Ma Guanglian from having any bad thoughts. Zhao Chen did not dare to underestimate a former Deng Xuan real person, even if he had always wanted to hunt him. On the surface, Feng Wan still looked plain and beautiful without makeup, but Zhao Chen, who knew her hobby, could no longer associate her with the words elegant and close to immortal mentioned in the human Renji list. And Feng Wan looked at Zhao Chen with a strange look. You know, Zhao Chen was at least half responsible for the fact that a seed of lust could blossom and bear fruit so quickly. Thinking back to those nights when she and her fifth sister eavesdropped on the wall. No, it was the nights when she cultivated the seed of lust. Her heart was beating wildly. After another quarter of an hour, with a gust of cold wind, Ma Guanglian's Yunqi clone appeared in the small garden of the Jinbio Martial Arts Hall. Unlike before, Zhao Chen, who had obtained many skills of the heavenly demon sect from the cave, easily recognized that this was Ma Guanglian's clone transformed by the Yin Demon 7 techniques. This kind of clone can't be too far away from the original body, but Ma Guanglian is the essence of Deng Xuan after all, and the effect of the spell is naturally beyond common sense. In this way, it is difficult to infer the location of his original body through the clone. When Zhao Chen sighed secretly, he heard Ma Guanglian's voice. The seed of lust is indeed mature. I didn't expect it to be so fast. Seventh sister is really not a person who can be judged by appearance. Ma Guanglian looked at Feng Wan carefully, and his tone was full of surprise. Feng Wan frowned, not at all happy about this praise. She snorted coldly and said, "Since I have completed what you want, you should tell me the information that the young master needs as soon as possible." Young master. Ma Guanglian glanced back and forth between Zhao Chen, Feng Wan, Gong Yun, Ming Zuling and others, and finally sighed. The method of happy bodhisattva is really terrifying. After sighing, Ma Urksha, whose head was shining with moonlight and was dazzling, organized his sentences and told the information about the profitable immortal staff. Last time I said that I saw the psychic magic weapon in a secret realm in Yunzhao. However, I'm not sure whether the secret realm itself is in Yunzhao, because every time I enter, I'm summoned by it. Although it appears that it can only respond within the scope of Yunzhao, it is not easy to conclude whether it is really the case. And if you want to be summoned by it, you must become a trader recognized by it. He knew what Zhao Chen wanted to know, so without waiting for the other party to ask, he continued, there are two ways to become its trader. First, be recognized by it and awarded a token. Second, kill a certain trader and seize his token. Well, don't try to hit on me. I'm a trader who became a clone, and that clone has died because of spying on the main body of the psychic magic weapon, and the token has also been recovered. Hearing this, Zhao Chen frowned, because both methods were not very reliable and were too random. How to be recognized by it? What is the token like? Zhao Chen asked, after thinking about it. As for the conditions for being recognized, I can only guess one. That is, the cultivation level cannot exceed the level of magical powers. Even the few traders I have seen don't even have top grade magical powers. As for the token, it seems to be fixed. It may be a card, a badge, or even a sword or a flute. But as long as you get it, you will naturally know that it is the other party's token. Because he had made an oath, Ma Guanglian knew everything and told me some of his speculations. By the way, if you are not strong and have treasures, you may be listed as a trader by it when you enter Yunzhou. This is the inference I made by observing the few people I induced before. You have also induced people to do experiments? That's right, this Ma Guanglian is also an old devil. He suffered a loss at the hands of the profitable fairy staff and naturally he will not let it go. He even told me this information happily, and he also intended to use me to weigh the profitable fairy staff. There is another chapter later. Chapter 516, taking advantage of a loophole. But even with his experimental inferences, there is no guarantee that he can obtain the qualification of a trader. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen carefully asked, "Do you know who are the traders recognized by the spiritual magic weapon? If there are deserving people among those traders, Zhao Chen would not mind snatching the token." Ma Guanglian looked at Zhao Chen with a smile and did not seem surprised, but he still shook his head and said, "They disguised themselves every time they participated in the assembly. I can only recognize that one of them is not from my Daksha ethnic group, and he practices the Huashan Sect's skills. But the Huashan Sect is located in the southwest border, and there are many inner and outer disciples. I still have no clue." Zhao Chen sighed and then asked a few more questions, and Ma Guanglian answered them truthfully. Finally, the bright moon shining over Dunhuang Malaoer also handed the replica of the profitable immortal staff to Zhao Chen and said, "If we can ask a master who is good at divination to help, maybe we can use this replica to determine the identity and location of the trader. But at least it must be a real person in the second level of Dangsuan to be able to do it. After all, he himself can't do it." Although Zhao Chen didn't know what Ma Guanglian didn't say, he knew that there was little hope for this. If there were enough star coins, maybe he could still look forward to the 8 diagrams bright light mirror, but Zhao Chen was short of money now, so he could only put it aside for the time being. Anyway, according to his plan, he would arrive in Yunzhou in half a year, so there was no need to be so anxious. Zhao Chen took the golden staff, which was made up of 7 snake-shaped carvings coiled together, and each snake had a different colored gem in its mouth. He used his spiritual consciousness to sense it for a while, and after confirming that it was correct, he nodded to Feng Wan. As a businessman, reputation comes first, and Zhao Chen didn't think of defaulting on his debt. Even if you want to deny it, you have to have a reason, and can't be so blatant. Feng Wan got his signal and immediately calmed down, letting a pink fruit emerge from her forehead. Then, she moved her mind, and the fruit fell off by itself, and flew in front of Ma Guanglian. Seeing that the last seed was about to be obtained, Ma Guanglian's gloomy face finally showed a smile. Although the quality of the fruit formed by this seed of lust was not satisfactory because it did not experience extreme emotional fluctuations, it was much better than other substitutes and barely enough for him to use. He took out a small box, guided the pink fruit into it, and sealed it up. Since the transaction was completed, Ma Guanglian did not stay for long. Like the previous times, he erased his figure bit by bit and disappeared. At this time, Feng Wan's face suddenly turned pale, and her breath quickly declined. After all, the seed of lust was cultivated with her spirit, and it was naturally a big harm to her to cut off the connection at this time. Especially since she had been fatally injured before. Even after taking the precious pill, her vitality has not been fully restored. Seeing this, Zhao Chen was not stingy and directly used the magical power blood painting sacrifice hung method stored in the golden box 5 keys to cover her body. This magical power is the top healing method of the blood god sect. Although there is no blood pool bonus, it still makes Feng Wan's face rosy again. After the effect of the magical power ended, Feng Wan bowed and thanked. "Thank you, young master. You're welcome. You are doing things for me. It's my duty." Zhao Chen waved his hand and didn't care. He could afford the price of a magical power. After all, buying from Qinshen can be paid in other ways. "I owe you a life, young master, and I should let you send it." Feng Wan insisted. "I only hate that my strength is low, and I can't do much. I can't repay your kindness." As a member of the 7 heroes of the South Desert, although Feng Wan has some small hobbies that cannot be seen by others, she also sticks to her own principles of life. Zhao Chen didn't say anything. When she heard this, Gong Yun pulled her aside and muttered in her heart, "Seventh sister, it's good to have persistence and bottom line, but you can't say certain things casually. Be careful that the little pervert really gets up." Gong Yun realized that she had forgotten to take off her mother-child concentric card when she was thinking halfway, so she quickly suppressed the thought and looked at Zhao Chen. As expected, she met his meaningful gaze. Dangsha Garden, Yunhei Pavilion. This pavilion is located at the top of the Dangsha Garden Canyon. Standing on it, you can have a panoramic view of the Dangsha landscape of the entire park. It is really magnificent from a distance, and it is all-encompassing from a bird's eye view. When you step on the stage, it feels like you are in a wonderland of Yunhei. At this time, Zhao Chen and Gong Yun were drinking tea on a platform of Yunhei Pavilion, while watching the famous landscapes of Dangsha Garden such as the monkey watching the sea, the monks worshipping Buddha, the big scallops, and the colorful flying clouds. Looking at the scenery in front of him, which was very similar to the Red Gold Mountain but more spectacular, Zhao Chen, who was in disguise, stroked the little black cat lying on his knees, and said to himself, "Can you tell me your plan now?" The little black cat yawned lazily, and after a while, it responded through the mother-child card. "It's actually very simple. Just let Cui Zhao think that France killed his cousin. I can guess that, but what about the specific plan?" Zhao Chen asked. Gong Yun did not answer directly, but only organized the sentence. "According to my investigation, Cui Zhao's cousin is named Cui Yan, with the strength of the 5th level of magic power. She was killed by Zibodu of Blackwind Castle when she came to Ganzhou for training 2 years ago. But because Cui Yan came to Ganzhou on impulse and Zibodu did it extremely covertly, the Cui family has never known that their family members have fallen here. After all, it's not unprecedented for young men who travel away from home to not contact their families for a year or two. Especially since Cui Yan was born out of wedlock and hasn't been included in the family tree to determine her generation name. No one paid attention to her. The Cui family only discovered her disappearance a few months ago, and the reason why King Iron Sword Cui Zhao came to Ganzhou this time was to accept the task of investigating the whereabouts of his cousin within the family. I helped him a lot." Seeing that she didn't answer directly, Zhao Chen narrowed his eyes and guessed that there were some arrangements that the little black cat was unwilling to say before the start to avoid being sensed. He thought for a moment, then asked, "Can your transfiguration technique also transform you into someone you haven't seen before?" Gong Yun knew Zhao Chen had guessed what was going on and couldn't help but sigh. "You really can't hide anything from me. But I can't transform myself, but with the help of the master, and with the jade flute that she has been carrying with her for many years as a medium, I can do it." The master she was talking about was actually Zhao Chen now, but because he had something to do before, every time he received her request, Zhao Chen would help her transfer to the spirit of the blessed land of his former master. Thinking of some of the bad tastes of the spirit of the blessed land, Zhao Chen's mouth curled up slightly, and he asked with interest, "What mission did you get?" Seeing the question, the little black cat was silent for more than 10 seconds, and then used the mother-child concentric card to transmit the message, "Come here without clothes to watch the game." Zhao Chen stroked her hand for a while, and then smiled and said, "You really know how to take advantage of loopholes." Chapter 517 Gong Yun's Concerns. Hearing Zhao Chen's teasing, the little black cat sighed and said, "I can only take advantage of this loophole by following you. If I had used this trick before, the master would not recognize it." Thinking of the evil personality of the spirit of Cheyenne Blessed Land, Zhao Chen couldn't help but be speechless. After a while, he comforted, "You have worked hard in the past. It's nothing. You must pay a corresponding price for what you gain. Compared to the help given by the master, this price is simply insignificant." Speaking of this, thinking back to the social death tasks he had done, Gong Yun suddenly couldn't say anything, and finally gritted his teeth and said, "Just treat it as sharpening my character." When the man and the cat were chatting enthusiastically through the mother-child concentric card, the protagonists of the drama directed by Gong Yun finally entered the canyon under Lord Yunhei. A team of 20 to 30 people walked into the canyon from the main gate of the Dangsha Garden. These people gathered around a young man like stars surrounding the moon. Among them were many young and famous knights and Gansao. They were always the absolute focus and core in their previous trips, but now they were willing to be the green leaf of the young master. Looking at the young master again, he had a face like a crown jade, a nose like a hanging gallbladder, thin lips, narrow phoenix eyes, and slightly raised eyes. Even if he didn't smile, he was still 3 points of wanton and romantic. He was handsome and outstanding. Is this Cui Zhao, the king guy in sword? On the Yunhei pavilion, Zhao Chen stared at the little white face below and had to admit that in terms of appearance alone, this person was much more handsome than himself. However, he possessed the 5 immortal spiritual key and was more charming than the other party. Wait, why should I compete with him in this? Shaking his head and throwing away many unreasonable thoughts, Zhao Chen suddenly realized that something was wrong, because Cui Zhao and his group actually went straight to the high platform Guanhei Garden on the other side of the valley in the garden. They had a clear goal and didn't seem to be traveling at all. Francis is in Guanhei Garden? Did you arrange it? Zhao Chen thought for a moment and asked the little black cat lying in his arms. To be precise, today's scene was arranged by Cui Zhao himself. As if wanting to see it more clearly, Gong Yun jumped onto Zhao Chen's shoulder. Francis is, after all, the outer sect steward of the Flower God sect. If you want to deal with him, you must be in the right and have enough witnesses. That's also the reason why they came here to play, but didn't clear the place in advance. Has Cui Zhao discovered that his cousin was harmed by France? Zhao Chen suddenly realized and chuckled. I thought you were going to let him catch you here. It seems that you did your homework in advance. Although Cui Zhao is young and of noble birth, he is not a brainless and reckless person. Even if he is caught in person, he will not act rashly. This person likes to plan before acting and is very cautious. Just like what is happening now, France has actually fallen into his calculations. If he has no other backup, he will definitely fall into Cui Zhao's hands today. Little black cat stared at the young man who was heading to the high platform on the other side of the valley and said lightly. She was not afraid of being sensed by the other party. After all, at this moment, there were countless eyes staring at this young man in the entire Dangsha Garden. No matter how cautious Mr. Cui is, hasn't he been used by you? Zhao Chen said with a smile. After all, he knew that Cui Yan actually fell at the hands of the Z family and had nothing to do with France. That's different. I was hiding in the dark and acting unintentionally, and I also got the help of the Master. Gong Yun was not proud at all, but said hesitantly, besides, I didn't notice it before, but now I think Cui Zhao might have realized that I was being used, and he just went with the flow and didn't expose it. After all, even if it was a well-planned move, the preparations were a bit too thorough. Little black cat looked at the people behind Cui Zhao and continued to ponder in his heart. Although these young people are of average strength, they can represent various forces of all sizes. Even if Cui Zhao is extremely popular, they shouldn't come in so many groups. He's only been in Gansao for a few days? You mean, he's wanted to deal with France for a long time, so he just took advantage of this incident? Zhao Chen was also very smart. He immediately grasped the hidden meaning of Gong Yun's words and said thoughtfully, it's not necessarily to deal with France, but he already had a similar plan. At this time, Meng Zuling's emotionless voice came from the Feng'an hemming ring on Zhao Chen's finger. I heard that the practitioners of the royal family Shenhuang Baochen need to obtain enough popularity and support. Maybe this Mr. Cui wants to become famous. Zhao Chen was also going to Wuiao Valley in the afternoon to act with Qin Sheng. As an important supporting role, Meng Zuling naturally had to be brought along. The need for skills? Maybe there is also a need to play the that's it. Zhao Chen suddenly realized he can become famous by stepping on a senior sect deacon, and he can also take advantage of the reason, maintain his upright character, and avenge his cousin, and he is not afraid of the Huashen sect's revenge for this. Francis is indeed a good candidate. especially since this fellow has become notorious in Ganzhou because of what he did at Human Wharf. Gong Yun was vaguely worried, because for someone like Cui Zahao, even if he is willing to be used now, there is a very high possibility that he will be held accountable later, and the resources he can mobilize are much more than France, and there is no guarantee that he will not be found out. The Six Gates and Daoguan offices in Ganzhou may not buy into the Flower God sect far in the southwest, but they will still give face to the son of a favored princess. It would be fine if Cui Zahao didn't know the inside story, but now that there is a high probability that he knows everything, even if he investigates, he will find out about her sooner or later. Gong Yun vaguely regretted choosing such a troublesome person to use. Just when the little black cat was worried, Zhao Chen took her off his shoulders, hugged her again, and comforted her softly. There's nothing to worry about. Not to mention whether he will get to the bottom of it. Even if he really finds out about you, there is still me. Compared with the causes and effects that Dairi Xingcha and Bodhisattva brought to him, this little trouble is nothing. Moreover, Cui Zahao is not necessarily an enemy, but a trouble. For example, his actions of pulling France out of Guanhe Garden and enumerating his crimes made Zhao Chen feel very pleasing to the eye, like a young chivalrous man who was not afraid of power and avenged his sister. Even Gong Yun, who was moved by Zhao Chen's words and nestled in his arms, poked her head out again and looked at the other side of the valley. To make up for yesterday's, there will be updates in the evening. Chapter 518, Capture. Willfully showing his Taoist body and harming the people, kidnapping female cultivators and turning them into flower slaves, bribing the government and privately intercepting the people's spirituality, colluding with demons, and harming the righteous way. Listening to Cui Zahao's righteous enumeration of his crimes, Fransley, who was originally listening to music for entertainment in Guanhe Garden, was a little confused at first, and then became angry, and used his magical power to stretch open the magic weapon that bound him. It was this magic weapon that unexpectedly trapped him before and dragged him out of Guanhe Garden. In response, Cui Zahao did not stop it. Even if the magical weapon was damaged, he did not respond and continued to narrate the other party's crimes. He paused only after saying killed Cui Yan, the eldest daughter of my Cui family. Then, Cui Zahao looked at France with eyes like lightning and asked loudly, Francis Lee, do you plead guilty? France, who had destroyed the magical weapon, had a distorted expression, and his mixed race face with high eyebrows and deep eyes became ferocious. He said viciously, of course not. You have no evidence. And even if I'm guilty, it is the master's judgment. When is it the turn of a brat like you who is still wet behind the ears to meddle in other people's business? Hearing this, Cui Zahao shook his head slightly disappointed and sighed. Originally, considering that you are the deacon of the upper sect, if you are willing to repent sincerely, it is not impossible for you to make meritorious deeds to atone for your sins. But since you are stubborn, you can't blame me. But punish without teaching is cruel. You must let you die with a clear mind. As he said, he waved his hand, and a slightly fat middle-aged man walked out of the crowd. Who is this man? A young knight asked doubtfully. It seems that he is the person in charge of the Nuan Yang factory in Zhanghai. An elder knight who was in charge of business operations carefully identified him and said uncertainly, a factory that processes Nuan Yang wood. Generally speaking, such places are managed by people from the Huashen sect. Another young knight said thoughtfully. Don't guess blindly. This man is called Hong Sanxiang, and he is the person in charge of the Huashen sect stationed in Ganzhou. My father mentioned him to me once. A young master of the Li family said. Along with the discussions of the young knights and knights errant, Hong Sanxiang first saluted respectfully to Cui Zahao, and then pointed at France and said, this person has been in Ganzhou for only more than a month, and he has collected information on knights errant and celebrities in Gan and Liang states under the pretext of master's mission, and has robbed them several times. As far as I know, the fairy Fengwu of Yinshan City, the female hero Ye Luan of Hicheng, and the female hero Lin Zhu of Gucha Town have all been killed by him. I wanted to report to my master, but he threatened me with something on me, so I had to work for him until I was rescued by Master Cui. His words were like water added to a frying pan, which immediately made everyone present boil. I was wondering why Sister Yellow hadn't replied to my letter for so many days. So, a petite female hero suddenly sobbed. Zhao Shu. What did you do to my Zhao Shu? A young hero stared at France with red eyes and trembling voice. Someone recognized that he seemed to be the fiancé of the female hero Lin Shu of Gucha Town. Female hero Feng has 9 turns of magic power and is eager to help others. Her reputation is far-reaching. She is a figure on the Ganzhou Feng'anski. Who would have thought that she would fall into the hands of you, or thief? Many knights who had received the favor of Feng Wuxin also offered their own magic weapons. For a time, the crowd was excited, and it seemed that they were going to fight France to the death. But in fact, no one stepped forward, just waiting for Master Cui Zhao to preside over justice. After all, the young knights present had extraordinary origins, and knew that the magical power was no longer a match for the number of people. Only Cui Zhao was able to deal with France. If I hadn't mistakenly entered the strange domain strengthened by the blood moon when chasing the old man who took off my pants, causing a lot of losses to the flower fairies in the Gangsha realm in my 100 Flowers book, I wouldn't have replenished them on the spot in a remote place like Ganzhou. But I don't remember touching the female cultivator of the Cui family. Could it be the woman holding the jade flute who was killed by me a few days ago? Even if I did it, the sect didn't say anything, and the 6 gates didn't investigate, so how could you, a stinky boy, be a hero? Moreover, old dog Hong actually dared to bite me back. He did a lot of bastard things near the sect, otherwise he wouldn't have been exiled to Ganzhou. Thinking this in his heart, France looked at those who glared at him, but did not dare to step forward, and suddenly laughed out loud. The next moment, he opened the 3rd grade magical power Flower Charm Immortal Body regardless of anything. Flower Charm Immortal Body is one of the highest achievements of the Flower God Sect's outer sect skills. Flower Charm Immortal Body, which can show a low quality immortalization state and transform into a half human half plant tentacle monster. And those who witness it, if they do not have corresponding means to resist, will fall into all kinds of desires and dreams, unable to extricate themselves. At the beginning, even the young Zhaofu, who was the reincarnation of a real person, was fooled and almost damaged his foundation in the continuous peachy dreams. The reason why France used this magical power directly was to create chaos, so that he could take the opportunity to escape. As long as he was not caught on the spot and fled back to the 3 southwestern states, the master would always have a way to protect him. At worst, he would leave Daksha and go to the vassal states on the peninsula. Zhao Chen, who was watching the development of the situation from a distance, laughed and said, France's condition is not right. Why is there no need to cause large-scale damage? This has confirmed the crime of attacking righteous monks without reason. If he didn't take action, how could Cui Zhao dare to really take down a deacon of the upper sect with only witnesses? But now, it has given Cui Zhao a perfect excuse. It is completely unreasonable for Huashan sect to ask about it later. France may have fallen into Cui Zhao's calculations from the beginning. This way of controlling the overall situation before taking action is very similar to him and Fei Meng. Little black cat Gong Yun also saw a little bit of the door and said, is it the magic weapon that dragged him out at the beginning? Its biggest function is not to trap people, but to affect people's spirit and judgment. I'm afraid that after being destroyed, this influence will be deepened. She has the eye that breaks delusion, and it is difficult to hide such tricks from her. Just as Zhao Chen was talking to Gong Yun, the battle on the platform on the other side of the valley had already begun. The sudden appearance of the flower charm fairy body did not cause any trouble, because a bitter and desolate piece of music sounded at this moment, making it difficult for desire to arise. The bitter tune saddens the metal and stone, and the clear sound enters the dark. For normal people, pain, especially the pain of the soul, is enough to suppress most desires. At this time, Cui Zhao pressed one hand on his lips to play this clear sound, and with the other hand, he pinched the sword formula, letting an invisible flying sword shoot straight at France, who turned around and wanted to escape. Chapter 519. Unable to capture. The invisible flying sword turned into a clear light, and at an indescribable speed, it caught up with France, who was trying to escape, and chopped him off on the head, like a mysterious musical note passing through the opponent's ears. The half-human half-plant monster was hit by this blow. Although it did not die immediately, it was also severely injured. It was difficult to maintain the flower charm fairy body and return to human form. However, the clothes on his body could not be restored, recreating the scene at the human wharf. France's eyes suddenly turned red, and he roared, pulling out a beautifully shaped book from the void. Hoo la la. With the sound of quickly turning the pages, more than a dozen female monks with beautiful faces, graceful figures, or both appeared. Most of them had only the level of magic power and gangsha, and only 2 of them had magical powers. In a rage, France released all the contracted flower fairies in the 100 Flowers book magical power. Sister Yellow, Zhao Chen, Lady Feng. Some of the young and female heroes immediately recognized acquaintances among these flower fairies. They were the famous female heroes who had disappeared in Ganzhou before. This was ironclad evidence, and no one doubted what Master Cui had just said. Seeing this, Cui Zaheo sensed the thoughts of worship and conviction that were gathering, nodded with satisfaction, and then stopped holding back. As the accompaniment music suddenly changed, the invisible sword turned into a huge palm, with 7 colors of red, yellow, green, purple, gold, blue and white flowing inside. The fingers formed seals and grabbed France. France seemed to have finally gotten rid of the influence of the initial secret calculation. While commanding the flower fairies in the 100 Flowers book to attack the young heroes present, he ordered one of the 2 flower fairies at the same magical level to face the 7-color palm. Since these people were brought here by Cui Zaheo, it was impossible for him, who claimed to be a righteous hero, not to save them, otherwise his painstakingly created personality would collapse. France saw through this, and took action against these juniors, because they were Cui Zaheo's real weakness at this time. But he didn't expect that the 6th grade defensive magical power released by the flower fairy facing the 7-color palm did not work at all, and he was locked in a small space, as if he had entered another world. Put down the butcher knife, and convert to my lord. The sea of suffering is boundless, turn back and you will never see the shore. Then, various Zen chants rang out in this world, and France felt that the magical power flower fairy trapped in it was getting weaker and weaker, as if it was being taken away bit by bit. But France didn't dare to delay at all, and he didn't even have time to look back, because the strength of the Cui family's son in front of him was far superior to his. If he didn't seize this opportunity to escape, he would not be able to leave. Ling 1. France murmured as he fled at high speed, his eyes filled with pain and hatred. Ling 1 was his junior sister when he was in the outer sect of the Flower God sect, and also his first love. If she had not fallen in love with someone else later, he would not have refined her into the first flower fairy in the 100 Flowers book. Later, he took great pains and used many treasures to cultivate Ling 1, who only had the 3rd level of magic power, into a supernatural power. Although the supernatural power of the 100 Flowers book can charm the people in the book and make them driven by the owner of the book, the so-called flower fairy or flower slave only has a distorted will, not dead, and can still continue to practice and improve their cultivation. It's just that without the self, it is impossible to survive the Dangshan catastrophe, and the middle and lower grade supernatural powers are the limit. Unless France can become a real person, incorporate the 100 Flowers book into the Dharma appearance or true body, and feed them back with his own status. In any case, Ling 1 was extremely important to France, and it was heartbreaking to have her taken away from him. Cui Zaheo did not chase after France as he fled. After all, he was the outer sect deacon of the Flower God sect, and had some relationship with the local Snakely family in Ganzhou. There was no need to kill him. Anyway, the purpose of his show today had been achieved, and there was an unexpected gain. Cui Zaheo looked at the flower fairies who were gradually converted by his god emperor's great handprint, and once again changed the background music of the invisible flying sword, and began to cut off the charming effect of those so-called flower fairies through clear sound, so as not to be taken back by the escaping France. The final result was that among the dozens of flower fairies, only the Wind Lady and another magical female cultivator returned to the 100 Flowers chart, and the rest were saved by Cui Zaheo. At this time, Cui Zahao pretended to be regretful and said, "In the end, the evil villain got away. Master Cui, don't blame yourself. You have tried your best. We are the ones who drag you down. Yes, if you hadn't rescued us several times, how could France have escaped? He didn't even dare to take your sword. Speaking of which, Master Cui, you easily suppressed even the disciples of the upper sect. You are worthy of being a peerless genius." Amidst the compliments and praises, Cui Zahao slightly raised the corners of his mouth, showing his good mood. "Francis was severely injured by me in the state of flower charm fairy body before, and his magical powers and magic tools were greatly consumed. Now is the weakest time. Even the middle and lower magical powers can easily deal with him. So, will the person who used me behind the scenes take the bait?" Dangsha Garden, on the Yunhei Pavilion on one side of the valley. Little Black Cat scratched Zhao Chen's arm with his claws and asked in his heart, "You didn't really take the bait, did you? How could it be?" Cui Zahao's intention to let France go was too obvious. In addition to avoiding trouble from the Flower God sect, I'm afraid finding you is also one of his goals. Zhao Chen touched her furry head and responded with a smile. But before Gong Yun could breathe a sigh of relief, Zhao Chen continued, "But I did arrange people to deal with France. Not to mention that he kidnapped many chivalrous women for his own selfish desires. The moment he set his sights on you, he had the way to die." When France investigated the Yun Cao Kyunghua sect leak, although he had not yet suspected Gong Yun, he had already planned to use public power for personal gain, and included her in the 100 Flowers book. This is also the fundamental reason why Gong Yun had to deal with him. Gong Yun was touched in her heart, but on the surface she joked, "Young master, you seem to like the word way to die very much." Well, this is a catchphrase of a senior. I just paraphrase. Zhao Chen coughed and said. Gong Yun didn't ask any more questions. After a HMM, he turned to ask, "Who did you ask to intercept him? Don't let Cui Zahao suspect us." "Of course he won't suspect us. Besides, it will also prevent Cui Zahao from clearing his connection with killing France." At the border between Ganzhou and Liangzhou, France, who was still flying fast, suddenly pressed the escape light. Because two figures intercepted him one after another. One of them was Cui Zish, the Su Iron Sword, who was temporarily under the command of Wei County Lord Meng Hongaiu. As a member of the Cui family and Cui Zahao's cousin, he naturally had reason to stop the murderer who killed his cousin. As for the other person, he was Cui Zish's good friend, Feng Qingxin, the Chunjiang Sword, who also joined the Wei County Lord. The reason for his arrival was also sufficient, because the Feng female hero who became a person in the book was his distant niece. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 520 Misleading. Dangsha Garden, Yunhei Pavilion. Watching from afar, Cui Zahao cast a spell to remove the charm effect on the chivalrous women included in the 100 Flowers book. Little Black Cat Gong Yun said thoughtfully, "The royal family's Shen Huang Daochen is a modified Shen Dao method. His rescue does not seem to really restore their freedom. It just changes them from France's slaves to Cui Zahao's fans." Zhao Chen shook his head. "Don't think so. They have no dignity and freedom in France. Now, except for having an object of worship in their hearts, it does not affect anything else. After all, he often does such things, so he naturally has to defend Cui Zahao. What's more, the Shen Huang mark left by Cui Zahao really has little impact. At most, it will make those chivalrous women become his fans. It should be a similar state. After all, Cui Zahao wants worship, not wholehearted belief. The latter is toxic. But this King Iron Sword really lives up to his name as a genius. France is also a top-grade magical power, but he couldn't last a few moves in his hands, and had to escape. Moreover, I feel that this Mr. Cui only contributed 50% of his strength at most," Gong Yun said with emotion without dwelling on the issue of rescue. Zhao Chen didn't think so. He felt that Cui Zahao had actually gone all out for today's scene. The reason why he beat France without any chance to fight back was entirely because of the preparations made in advance. The whole process was under his control, so he naturally seemed to be at ease. It can be said that when France was first attacked by the magical weapon, his fate of failure was doomed. Besides, France was caught off guard, which must be a problem. After all, a person with high-grade magical powers must have basic precautions. How could he be detained by a magic weapon because he got too carried away with entertainment? Even if it was a sneak attack, it would be impossible to hide it from his consciousness. Is there a higher level power involved? Either Cui Zhao asked a master to protect him and conceal the secret, or he has a treasure of the Danksuan level on him. Zhao Chen narrowed his eyes and made various speculations in his mind. As an investigator, discovering the secrets behind the incident is also one of the rules of the role. However, he did not tell Gong Yun about his speculation. After all, in the absence of evidence, speculation is just speculation. But soon, one of his ideas was confirmed, because after Suian sword Cui Zishan Shunjiang sword Feng Kingston subdued France, a Danksuan level worshipper of the royal family showed up. However, although he is at the Danksuan level, he is not a Danksuan real person, but a Zenbingshi. After listening to the news reported by Princess Wei Minghangai, who had established a contract with him before, and the two could communicate simply through the Dairi Xingcha, Zhao Chen's heart moved, and he said to the little black cat lying in his arms, "You guessed right, Cui Zhao really let France go. He sent a Zenbingshi to follow him secretly, just to find out who is using him." Gong Yun sneered in her heart and said, "If I still can't see this trap, I have been in the martial arts world for so many years in vain." Speaking of which, although Cui Zhao is very scheming, and his plan is remarkable, he is still a little too naive. As for today's situation, if the old martial artists were present, he would definitely not achieve the effect he wanted. That's why he summoned these 14 or 15-year-old, innocent young men and women to be spectators, right? This shows that he has a very clear understanding of this. Zhao Chen thought Cui Zhao's performance was very good and gave it a very high evaluation. It can only be said that the young men and women of these families and sects in Ganzhou lack experience. Gong Yun sighed, completely ignoring that Zhao Chen was actually the same age as the young men and women below. She jumped onto Zhao Chen's shoulders again, smiling in her heart. "Now that the matter is over, let's leave quickly, otherwise it may arouse the suspicion of Mr. Cui." As she said, her eyes turned and glanced at the tourists who hurriedly left the Dangsha garden. The incident happened suddenly, so the tourists in the park naturally had no time to do anything, but now they are all very scared. After all, how can they bear the battle of magic power? When France turned into a flower charmer before, Cui Zhao only protected the audience he brought with him, as well as the tourists who were slightly closer, but many other bystanders suffered and fell into a nightmare and could not control themselves. Therefore, when the battle of magic power ended, many people chose to leave this place first, after they came to their senses. After Cui Zhao removed the charm effect on most of the female heroes in the 100 Flowers book, he used the excuse of resting to enter the best private room in Guanhei Garden, and then released the flower fairy at the magical power level that he converted with the God Emperor's great handprint. This is also the only person in the book who has not regained freedom, because she has been converted or polluted by his magic power. However, the female cultivator with magical powers who was supposed to be a puppet suddenly shook her arms and turned her head, then said in amazement, "The Divine Emperor's precious confession can only confess, but cannot forgive sins. It can only use tricks to disperse the pollution or poison of the Tao that has accumulated on itself in order to convert others. But this is not without risks. Once the converted person is out of control, the first person to be bitten back will be you. In addition, although faith is poisonous, a small amount of targeted and controllable faith is also an effective means to fight against the poison of Tao. Or, faith may also be an alternative poison of Tao. It seems that the great-grandfather of the Ming family is really something." Cui Zhao was not at all surprised by her abnormal behavior, but just smiled and said, "Senior Xiandi, are you satisfied with the body I provided for you?" the foundation of the outer sect exercises of the Hua Shen sect. It's okay to use it for the time being. After the so-called Zandi senior replied, he suddenly looked to the west and smiled. Your army commander is coming back. Remember not to call my name wrong in front of him. Well, my current body is an outer sect disciple of the Hua Shen sect, named Hua Lingwen, the junior sister of France. After saying that, her eyes seemed to have completely lost their agility, and she only looked at Cui Zaheo with a fanatical look. At this moment, an elderly monk with a kind face and a jade flute in his hand appeared in the private room. Old Kwa, has the person who used me behind the scenes appeared? Cui Zaheo hurriedly bowed and asked. The old man called Old Kwa shook his head and said, it was your eldest son and another monk with magical powers who captured France. The eldest son. Cui Zish. Didn't he take refuge with the wee princess? Cui Zaheo frowned. The wee princess seemed to be outing nearby, and just happened to run into. The other monk with magical powers is probably also the princess's worshipper. Old Kwa thought for a while, and continued. However, there is no good scenery in the place where they are outing. It doesn't seem like a coincidence. Of course it's not a coincidence. Could it be that the person who used me behind the scenes has nothing to do with the person France is pursuing, but my eldest cousin? Chapter 521, Fighting. Sand Mountain. Above the worry-free valley, wind, fog, thunder and lightning appeared together, entangled with a ball of red flames, forming a curtain like a burning cloud, covering the situation inside, making it difficult for the divine consciousness of the supernatural cultivators to see clearly. They could only vaguely observe two figures, constantly fighting, and then quickly separating, and so on. This is Ming Zuling, who pretended to be Duan Mingsu, and Kanglin, who pretended to be Qinsheng, fighting. And in a pavilion by a large lake hundreds of miles away from the worry-free valley, several masters were watching the battle. Among them were Hao Shangxing, the life-seeking birthday star who facilitated this battle, Li Fuan, the Blue Lotus Sword, who was the Li family's face, and determined the power structure of human with his old friend, the elders of Ling Fort who came to investigate the cause of death of his son Lei Yuan and track down the whereabouts of the blood god Mingyu, the true master of the magic way, and his junior sister Luo Zhen. The thousand bamboo sword Lei Yuan he, Feng Jiang, the Snow Kai sword, who was newly stationed in Dunhuang by the Feng family, a prominent family in Ningzhou, and Feng Daoan, the head of the Ganzhou Six Gates, who was invited by Lei Yuan. The six masters of supernatural powers gathered under the same shed, which was a rare event in Human County. Unfortunately, they met unexpectedly, and no newspaper reporter recorded this scene. That fire cloud seems to be the third-grade magical power heavenly tripod mysterious fire formation of the Danding Immortal Sect's outer sect technique heavenly tripod formation Dao collection. Is this helper found by young master Zhao Chen an outer sect disciple of the Danding Immortal Sect? Feng Jiang, the Snow Kai sword of the Feng family, asked with interest. He is a middle-aged man wearing a brocade robe and a jade belt. Although he also practices the Feng family's flying snow divine sword sutra, he is not as cold as Feng Wan and others. Instead, he is good at dancing with long sleeves, and is quite enthusiastic. This is probably why he was sent to preside over the affairs of a place that is Three Wonders Fairy Duan Mingsu, a great master of the three ways of alchemy, formation, and puppetry, and has some origins with the Danding Immortal Sect. Hao Shangxing briefly introduced a few words. He had already investigated the magical female cultivators around Zhao Chen. It turned out to be Three Wonders Fairy. Feng Jiang suddenly realized that he had heard of this name. After all, this was a person of the same generation as him. He didn't expect that he was also related to the newly rising young Master Chen. Is the happy Bodhisattva lineage really so terrifying? What kind of skills did Qinsheng use? Since it can hold its own against the heavenly tripod mysterious fire formation, it must be at least of the 4th rank. At this time, Lei Yuan, the thousand bamboo sword, asked. The elder of Ling Castle was originally investigating the river valley full of broken magic formations that the two disciples Lin Feng and Chu Yunmo escaped from with his junior sister, trying to find clues about Mingyu. As a result, he noticed the sound of magical powers fighting in Wuya Valley, so he came here to watch the battle. His junior sister, Luo Zhen, who was wearing a Kinglo Palace skirt, observed for a while, but shook her head and said, although it is covered by the fire fog, making it difficult to see the situation inside, I'm sure it is not the skills and magical powers I know. There are many skills related to wind, fog, and lightning, but I only know 3 that can reach the 4th rank, but they are all different from the one this girl uses. The speaker was Feng Jinshang of the 6 Gates, who was born in the Feng family of Yinshan City, and was the father of the Feng Wu fairy knight who was kidnapped by France. He actually came to look for his daughter's whereabouts, and it was also a coincidence, but he didn't know that his daughter had been rescued by Meng Hongai's 2 men. I wonder if the 6 Gates can find out the origin of this woman, Li Fuan asked. As a local snake, the Li family naturally had to find out what the sudden emergence of the power had. Although there is no clear evidence, it is likely related to the forces behind the 3rd son of the Sun family in Yicheng. To be specific, there is no clue for the time being. Feng Jinshang shook his head. At present, Ganzhou has a mixed force of various parties. I don't know how many sects and families from other states have secretly intervened. If you want to investigate it clearly, it will take at least a year or 2. And even if he knew, he would not tell outsiders for no reason, which would offend people and not be pleasing. Humph, I guess this woman has some connection with the Bei family in Ningzhou. Lei Yuan snorted coldly and said, why do you think so? Hao Shangxing, who was most concerned about this matter, was moved and asked. The 3rd son of the Sun family has traces of practicing the Stealing Saints manual. Oh, others can't see it, but my Ling Castle and the Bei family are sworn enemies, and each of us has obtained a part of the lower part of the Stealing Saints manual, so it is impossible to make a mistake. Since Qin Sheng is the backer behind the 3rd son of the Sun family, it is very likely that he is from the Bei family. Lei Yuan raised the corners of his mouth. He felt very happy to be able to reveal the identity of his enemies and destroy their arrangements. What's more, he has always suspected that Meng Yu killed his son Lei Yuan because a certain force used the magic way to demonstrate or test Ling Castle. If the Bei family is behind it, it would be even more reasonable. The Bei family. That's right, the Bei family does seem to have a magical power of wind, fog, thunder and lightning, called Shan Ziyang, but it is quite difficult to practice, and few people can practice it, and almost no one has seen it. Could it be this? Li Fuan seemed to be thinking about something, and then seemed to have figured something out, and said with a smile, the Bei family is a relative of the Jinzhou family. If this Qin Sheng is really from the Bei family, it is no wonder that the female hero Tang Miao beside Master Chen did not go into battle, but chose Fairy Duan. After hearing what he said, everyone else nodded secretly, and agreed with Lei Yuan's guess. Seeing that everyone fell silent, Feng Jiang brought the topic back to the battle. I wonder which of these 2 fairies has a greater chance of winning? I'm weak, so I can't tell. He said it openly, without any embarrassment. After all, he had only cultivated the 6th grade magical power, and was indeed the weakest among the magical cultivators present. At present, Qin Sheng has a slight advantage, but Fairy Duan is protected by the heavenly tripod mysterious fire formation, so she won't lose in a short time. Li Fuan stroked the long beard at the corner of his mouth and said, the heavenly tripod mysterious fire formation has both offensive and defensive capabilities. Fairy Qin may reveal a flaw if she is not careful. Hao Shangxing on the side also nodded and said, I'm afraid that this fight will not be decided in a short time. But before he finished speaking, he saw Qin Sheng and Duan Mingsu both stop fighting, and the fire cloud and mist disappeared together. Then, a handsome young man flew between the 2 of them and said something. Qin Sheng actually opened the formation restriction of Wuya Valley, and welcomed the 2 into the valley. The 6 supernatural powers looked at each other, completely confused about what happened, and why the 2 fairies stopped. Just as they were about to go to Wuya Valley, to find out what was going on, Sun Kun, the 3rd son of the Sun family, flew straight towards the direction of the pergola. When he came closer, he first bowed to all the masters, then handed a jade slip to Hao Shangxing and said respectfully, Fairy Qin has agreed to your request. This. Hao Shangxing glanced at it, and his mouth opened slightly. He didn't understand why Qin Sheng, who was so strong before, had such a big change in attitude. This was several times better than he expected. He was about to ask Sun Kun about the specific situation, but his spiritual consciousness sent a scene that appeared before the Wuya Valley formation closed. The strong and domineering fairy Qin Sheng actually smiled like a flower and took Zhao Chen's arm. Chapter 522, Morning Capital. Wuya Valley Market, in the 8 Treasures building. Zhao Chen was about to use his magic power to close the Shangmingjiao formation, but suddenly he felt a refreshing fragrance, and a figure approached suddenly, and his elbow touched something soft. When he came to his senses, the real Qin Sheng had already wrapped her arms around her left arm, looking shy, but in fact her eyes were shining like stars. Zhao Chen was stunned at first, and when he realized what she was going to do, she had completely closed the formation, so he said helplessly, "You are too contrived. Even if you want to show my true identity as the happy bodhisattva, you should be more tactful." Qin Sheng shook her head slightly, her voice hoarse and charming, and said with a smile that seemed real and fake, "Sometimes, the more fake it seems, the more people will believe it. The more fake it seems, the more real it is." Zhao Chen seemed to be thinking about something, and roughly understood what Qin Sheng meant. It is precisely because it is too contrived that those cultivators with magical powers do not think that Qin Sheng is deliberately acting, but suspect that my joyful bodhisattva inheritance has an amazing effect on female cultivators. Qin Sheng knew that he had taken a detour when he saw Zhao Chen's expression, and said with a smile, "Anyway, no matter how real it is, they will instinctively doubt it. It is better to let them guess and judge for themselves by mixing the true and false. And people are often more willing to believe the results they have speculated." Zhao Chen glanced at her. "Your blood demon lineage is also good at playing with people's hearts? Although the inheritance of Patriarch Moyan also involves the field of mind, it is not profound, but Buddhism is an expert in this area." Qin Sheng paused and continued, "And Blood River language and Blood Demon Mandala actually refer to the ancient Buddhist exercises. What's more important is that you are the Saint Seer chosen by Qi Meng, the Bodhisattva, right?" Zhao Chen complained in his heart, but asked on the surface, "Has the blood demon who possessed Mingyu come here?" Mingyu, a disciple of Ling Castle, was the blood godson of a blood demon. He had previously taken advantage of Qin Sheng's promotion to supernatural powers to snatch her fundamental supernatural power blood god diagram, but was captured by Qin and Shu and sealed in the blood god pearl. Although this was done perfectly, and they were confident that nothing was missed, there was no guarantee that the real person had any special supernatural power to find out the truth. No, and even if he has come here, he would not dare to act rashly before finding out my background. As the two were talking, they had already gone down to the underground of the 8 Treasures building, which was the entrance to the worry-free cave heaven. As for Konglin and Ming Zuling, they were arranged to preside over the formation outside to avoid any accidents. Crossing the passage, the two soon came to the depths of the Li family imperial mausoleum, where Qin Yap, a red-dressed real person, was sitting. Because of the last battle where she overdrawn her essence, she seemed to have aged a little. After seeing Qin Sheng and Zhao Chen appear together, she looked the latter up and down, and couldn't help but sigh. "It's only been a few days, and you have reached the 8th level of magic power. She is worthy of being the one that was favored." "Thank you for the compliment, senior. I'm just lucky," Zhao Chen said modestly. Of course, in his opinion, it is not certain whether this is good or bad. You don't have to be modest. Although there are many injustices in this world, it is relatively fair in the path of cultivation. What kind of achievements you have to pay the price, sooner or later. And I guess that with your current achievements, the difficulties you have encountered are probably far greater than those of people at the same level. Perhaps because she became a female ghost, Qinya Zenran has always been outspoken and said whatever she wants. As for the difficulties encountered, does it count as rising from the level of supernatural powers to the Dunksuan level? Zhao Chen exhaled a breath. Although his previous experiences seemed to go with the flow and easily solved the crisis, in fact, even if he took a wrong step, the ending would be the scattering of souls. The reason why it looks easy is actually that he and Fei Meng have made many preparations in advance, and they cooperated tacitly and made the right choices every time. Maybe this is the so-called a good warrior has no glorious achievements? Of course, these difficulties, compared to what I gained, still seem not enough, and the big head is still in the future. Zhao Chen sighed secretly, saluted to Qinya Zenran again, and said, "Thank you Zenran for your advice." After seeing Qinya waving her hand impatiently, he pondered for a while and asked, "Zenran, I wonder if there are heavenly demon blood evil, human demon bone gang and earth demon yin evil in the cave?" One of the purposes of his entering the cave was to find suitable Ganki and Shaki to prepare for condensing his innate magic in the Gangsha stage. "Oh, you are going to practice the 9 transformations of the blood demon, the 8 methods of the bone demon and the 7 techniques of the yin demon. The heavenly demon without form magical power is indeed useful, but won't the talisman position you have received conflict with it?" Qinya was a little surprised. Although the wording was unpleasant, she still reminded her, once the talisman position, or your foundation, is not compatible with the magical power you are practicing, at best it will be difficult to succeed in condensing the magical power and waste 3 spell slots, and at worst you may die on the spot. I know this too, but for some reason, my Star Chariot talisman can be compatible with almost all magical powers, even if it does not occupy the source shares. The only thing I need to consider is whether the magical power I practice will conflict with other magical powers. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen nodded to Qinya and said with a smile, "Thank you for your concern. I don't need to." Seeing this, Qinya Zenran said nothing more, only said lightly, "There are heavenly demon blood evil and human demon bone gang, but the earth demon yin evil has long been extinct in this world. The last one is what made the old witch's heavenly demon formless. But the gang evil key is precious. If you want it, you have to pay equivalent items in exchange." Zhao Chen didn't mean anything to this. Although he can now be said to be the lord of worry-free cave heaven, it would not last long if he just asked for it, and he would not do that. What's more, stepmother Li Xiaoling entered the cave heaven with Zhao Song's inheritance. Those gold and silver could not be taken to the outside world for the time being, but shopping in the cave heaven was no problem. Gold and silver are also the common currencies in the cave heaven. Moreover, after completely occupying Yicheng and Worry-Free Valley, a large number of goods from the outside world will be dumped in immediately. We have to improve the purchasing power in the cave heaven, right? Barter is always inconvenient. Thinking of Li Xiaoling, Zhao Chen remembered the second thing to do after entering the cave heaven, which was to hand over his younger brothers and sisters to his stepmother. So Zhao Chen did not delay any longer. After saying goodbye to Master Qin, he took Qin Sheng out of the mausoleum and headed for the rebuilt capital. However, since all the Li family members, except the Empress had died, and the so-called Empress was pretended by Qi Fimeng, it was impossible for her to stay in the cave forever, so the capital was no longer called Lijiang, but Chenjing. Wish everyone a happy new year. Chapter 523 Lulin Ki's placement. Chenjing? Seeing the plaque on the gate of the new city, Zhao Chen turned his head to look at Qin Sheng beside him, and asked with a strange expression, "Is this your idea?" Qin Sheng's eyes moved, and she smiled and said, "My Master Chen, you probably don't know how high your reputation is in the world of Dangshan." While speaking, she smiled and took Zhao Chen briskly to a monument in the city, pointing to the relief story on it and said, "Your Master Chen first defeated the bull-headed demon with a sword, and saved the people of Lijiang Prefecture. Then he followed Saint Lu to the south, cleansed the evil spirits with the sound of the piano, and rescued the 2 major sects. And in the territory of the Southern Ming cult, Master Chen is the Star Lord sent by heaven, the savior of the world. Not to mention that after the battle of the Imperial Mausoleum, the 2 real people Qin and Chu vigorously promoted that it was you who defeated the demon lord who had caused chaos in the world and restored order to the world. So, if you raise your arms now, the throne is just at your fingertips, and it is not impossible to have 3,000 beauties in the harem. What do you think? Are you tempted?" It would be a lie to say that I'm not moved, but if I don't make progress like that, I'm afraid I'm not far from death. How could the person who is pushing our destiny behind the scenes allow me to be so comfortable? What's more, I'm impatient to manage a country, and I don't have too many ideas about power. Moreover, power is something that you will get naturally when you are strong. For example, the 2 real people Qin and Chu, even if they are half dead, but who in the cave dares not listen to what they say. Shaking his head, Zhao Chen's gaze stayed on the monument for a few seconds, and he said carefully, building this monument, was it the intention of the two real people? You saw it? That's right, it can't be hidden from you. Who has the *Dangsui? Qin Sheng didn't seem surprised by Zhao Chen's question, and said calmly, the beliefs of the people in the cave are gathered here, and under the monument, the essence of the spirit of the cave heaven is suppressed. The worry-free cave heaven has a spirit, and before the battle of the mausoleum, it had been sealed by the two real people Qin and Shu. Sure enough, the real people want to suppress the heart of heaven with the human heart, and completely wash away the will of the cave heaven itself. Zhao Chen nodded, frowned again and said, but the process may take hundreds or thousands of years, and human hearts are fickle, so it is difficult for this arrangement to succeed. The human heart suppressing the heart of heaven is only a supplementary means. The sealing of the cave heaven spirit mainly relies on the power of the two real people Qin and Shu. Qin Sheng simply replied, and then smiled and said, I know what you want to ask. Lulan Qi himself is not under the monument. What is suppressed here is only the thing that carries the existence of the cave heaven spirit. What the real people want to pollute with human hearts is also that thing. Although the cave heaven spirit was sealed in Lulan Qi, it was only its main consciousness, not its root. It is meaningless to erase that consciousness, because if the carrier that carries the consciousness is not eliminated, it will still give birth to a new consciousness later. Instead, the right way is to take advantage of the opportunity when it is sleeping in Lulan Qi to completely change its foundation. In the final analysis, it is because the spirit of Wu'ai cave was not born normally, but was artificially induced after being polluted by external factors, which makes it possible for the real people to completely solve the problem. Where is Lulan Qi now? Zhao Chen asked. After all, he is the brother of Baogwen, so he has to ask a question. His memories of the cave heaven were sealed off, and he was arranged at Daksha, as far away from the worry-free cave heaven as possible. Qin Sheng said with a smile, but don't worry, he has the knowledge stored in the spirit of the cave heaven, and he has great luck and a long life. With the attention of Master Chu from time to time, his situation will not be bad. As expected of a demon woman in the magic way, if Fei Meng herself were here, she would definitely not arrange a person's fate in such a casual conversation. Zhao Chen secretly sighed, but did not point fingers at Qin Sheng and the two masters' actions. After all, from the moment Lulan Qi became the carrier of the fate of the cave heaven, he was destined to bear these. Relatively speaking, his current ending is not bad. When the two masters made this decision, they must have considered my friendship with Lulan Qi. It's just that Brother Lu is facing a situation very similar to mine. We both suddenly came to another world as soon as we opened our eyes, and there was an inexplicable golden finger in our souls, carrying an unusual fate. After sighing a few words in his heart, Zhao Chen stopped staying at the monument and followed Qin Sheng to a new house in the west of the city. Although Qi Meng had already released the incarnation before the historical fog of Chijin Mountain dissipated, allowing Li Zieling's spirit to return under extremely harsh conditions with the help of a special environment, she finally regained control of her body after entering the Wu'ai cave heaven. However, this does not mean that Li Zieling does not know what happened in those reincarnations of the Chijin Mountain historical mist. On the contrary, she remembers everything Qi Meng has done with her body. Therefore, Li Zieling acquiesced to the other party's arrangement, living quietly in the house of this strange world, waiting to reunite with her two children. Fortunately, this day came not too late. Just a few days later, she saw the woman who settled her in the house with a man. Chen Jia? The moment she opened the door, Li Zieling was stunned. She didn't expect to see her stepson here. Zhao Chen smiled slightly, but didn't call her mother. He just said Zieling, because he knew that his stepmother had decided to cut off ties with the Li and Zhao families, and no longer recognized her as Li Hu's daughter and Zhao Song's wife. Zieling. Hearing her stepson call her like this, Li Zieling finally regained her thoughts. She widened her eyes and said in a trembling voice, You, the person who saved me in reincarnation before was Chen Jia you? Although she was already her at that time, due to Qi Meng's excellent acting skills, every time she recalled the memory of gaining hope and pain and despair, she couldn't help but empathize with her, and even felt that, if it were her, she would probably fall deeper. But now, when she found out that the person who saved herself and made her have inexplicable feelings was Zhao Chen, her stepson, she couldn't help but feel ashamed and embarrassed and almost covered her face and walked away. You know, the girl who promised her wish and became her for a period of time, acted like she was really attracted to the man in front of her. Just call me by my name. I'm the same as you, Zhiling, and I don't plan to recognize Zhao Song anymore. As he spoke, Zhao Chen, Qin Sheng, and Li Zhiling walked into the main house and released the still sleeping brother and sister from the Feng'an hemming ring. Continue to wish everyone a happy new year. Relatives came to visit my house today and stayed until 11 o'clock, so it was a little late. Chapter 524 Shopping. Seeing her two children appearing in front of her safely, Li Zhiling could no longer hold back her excitement and let her tears flow down her cheeks, crystal clear, like morning dew moistening the petals, interpreting endless joy. Even though Zhao Zi and Zhao Mian were sleeping, their vitality was visible to the naked eye. This alone resolved the despair and pain she had felt in countless reincarnations. Thank you, Zhao Chen. Thank you, Li Zhiling said repeatedly, somewhat incoherently. Zhao Chen also understood the other party's feelings and did not respond immediately. He let her vent for a long time. After her emotions gradually stabilized, he smiled and said, no need to thank me, we are a family, it's my duty. As he said that, he briefly introduced the current situation of his younger brother and sister, and finally said, the foundation building spirit liquid they took is very effective. Sister Zia is a little older, but brother Minor may have some sequelae after waking up. This is because his brother has a deep blessing after surviving the disaster. If it were another baby, he would have been too weak to be replenished and exploded and died. Of course, it is also related to the fact that his younger brother and sister are all of the red-bearded dragon bloodline. What's the sequelae? Li Zhiling's heart tightened, and she asked hurriedly. Although she is also a cultivator in the Mana realm and holds the magic weapon Pan Long Stick, she knows very little about cultivation knowledge. With his bloodline activated, he is likely to awaken his superpowers, and because he is too young to control it, he may hurt others and himself if he is not careful. Before Zhao Chen could answer, Qin Sheng beside him took over the conversation with a smile. And if you have to take care of your youngest son, you will not have the energy to take care of your daughter. Hearing this, Li Zhiling felt relieved at first. After all, such sequelae were not a bad thing strictly speaking. As a mana cultivator, she could still deal with it. But when she heard Qin Sheng's next words, she fell into a contradiction again. She didn't want to be separated from her children, but the woman in front of her was right. She had limited energy and could not take care of her daughter while taking care of her son. Even a negligence could cause her daughter to get hurt. Seeing the struggle on Li Zhiling's face becoming more and more intense, Zhao Chen glanced at Qin Sheng helplessly and said, okay, if you have any ideas, just say it directly. There is no need to beat around the bush. After all, Li Zhiling has been new for a few days. Is it fun to play tricks like this? Hearing this, Li Zhiling came back to her senses, looked at Qin Sheng hopefully, and said, Miss, if you have anything to say, just tell me. She was actually very smart. If it weren't for the fact that the Red Gold Mountain dungeon was full of unreasonable strong things, she might not be able to protect her children. So she roughly guessed Qin Sheng's thoughts. But Qin Sheng is such a blood demon witch. Qin Sheng glanced at Zhao Chen charmingly and said slowly, I need you to use the Pan Long Stick to help me do 3 things. The Pan Long Stick is a magic weapon left by the red-bearded dragon. Only people with the red-bearded dragon bloodline can use it. At present, Li Zhiling is the only candidate. Qin Sheng paused for a moment, then continued, as for the problem of this child's supernatural power, it is actually very simple. We just need to seal it temporarily. Although the supernatural power formed by the red-bearded dragon bloodline is at a high level, Chen Lang has obtained the practice method of the Demon King's body-binding magical power. One of its 2 prerequisite spells, the Demon Suppression Golden Seal, should be able to do it. Really? Li Zhiling's eyes lit up and looked at Zhao Chen. Zhao Chen thought about it, nodded and said, it's not a big problem, but I have to wait until I find the corresponding and condense it into the seed of my life spell. Don't worry, it's great that you are willing to help. Zhao Chen Li Zialing's tone was a little complicated because after denying her identity as Zhao Song's wife, she was not sure what kind of relationship she should use to treat Zhao Chen. The previous mother-son relationship is definitely not okay. Then is it a son or nephew now? Benefactor? Or friend? Suppressing some messy thoughts, Li Zialing turned to Qin Sheng and said, "Thank you Miss Qin for telling me. I wonder what 3 things you want me to do." Zialing will do her best. Although using the Panlong stick is a heavy burden for her now, every time she uses it, it is equivalent to consuming her life. I will tell you, when I need you. Your current task is to tap the power of your bloodline as much as possible, and improve your cultivation. Qin Sheng didn't say anything more. She did have some ideas about the original body, which was once the incarnation. Maybe she could use Li Zialing to make a trap to deal with her. While Qin Sheng was thinking, she glanced at Zhao Chen inconspicuously, thinking, I just don't know if Chen Lang agrees. But I can't tell him directly about this. Zhao Chen didn't know what Qin Sheng was thinking, but he trusted Fei Meng that she wouldn't do anything excessive. Even if she wanted to play a demon like Qin Sheng, she would definitely have a sense of propriety, so he simply didn't ask. After that, Zhao Chen chatted with Li Zialing for a few more words, and told her that Yan Hangsha would come to visit her soon, and then he took away the gold, silver and antiques left by Zhao Song hidden in the house. This was what Qi Fimeng controlled Li Zialing to bring back to the cave when the historical fog of Chijin Mountain disappeared. Speaking of which, Song Weiru's cave was actually built more than 100 feet underground at the bottom of Jian River, and it was only connected to the valley of Chijin Mountain through the Black Domain. After the fog of history disappeared that day, the Black Domain passage also collapsed. Li Zialing actually dug it out with a Panlong stick. In the courtyard, looking at the backs of the man and the woman going away, Li Zialing suddenly sighed, threw away some unrealistic fantasies, and was about to turn back to the house, but her spiritual consciousness found that her daughter Zaozi woke up from her sleep. She rubbed her eyes, saw her mother running towards her, and immediately curved her eyebrows and said, "Mom, I'm hungry." On the other hand, after Zhao Chen got the treasure left by Zhao Song, he immediately made a large purchase in the cave world. Although Chenjing City had just been rebuilt, it was actually more prosperous than before, because it was no longer just the territory of the royal family. Sects such as the Blood God Sect, the Holy Spirit Sect, and the Ming cult had all tilted their resources over, and all kinds of resources were concentrated here. Therefore, Zhao Chen not only bought the heavenly demon blood evil and human demon bone gang promised by Master Qin, but also unexpectedly saw a variety of materials needed for the bone demon. This was probably because the White Jade sect was destroyed, and the originally monopolized resources flowed into the market. Zhao Chen did not hesitate to buy them all. Although the bone demon 8 methods only require the human demon bone gang to practice, the 8 bone magic spells contained in it also require materials. Chapter 525 Undercurrent. In the pavilion by the lake hundreds of miles away from Wuiao Valley, the 6 masters of magical powers waited for a long time, until they saw Zhao Chen reappear, and had a good chat with the fairy Qin Sheng. Then they were sure that the negotiation between the two sides should be very successful, and the agreement brought by Sun Kun was also likely to be true. Green Lotus Sword Li Fuan glanced at his old friend beside him, and said in a strange voice, "Why do I feel that the reason why this fairykin was so strong before was to lure Mr. Chen?" After all, her attitude changed too quickly. Hao Shangxing also had this feeling, but after thinking about it carefully, he shook his head and said, if it was really a trap set by them, it would not be so obvious. I guess the inheritance of Happy Bodhisattva is very attractive to female cultivators like Fairykin. In fact, let alone female cultivators, even you and I, don't we think this young man is very kind? But they don't know that kind of intimacy actually comes from the spiritual energy of the 5 immortals and the beauty of the Tao, and it is the result of Zhao Chen's deliberate restraint. Otherwise Li Fuan, who practiced the 5 Emperor's true sword, would probably feel it in his heart, just like Yan Hangsha couldn't help herself when facing Zhao Chen. That's right. Li Fuan thought of Zheng Qingyan, Tang Mao, Duan Mingsu and other female practitioners who inexplicably surrounded Zhao Chen nodded in approval and said with emotion, in a sense, the inheritance of happy bodhisattva is really terrifying. The more terrible Master Chen is, the more he can help me deter the villains, right? Hao Shangxing smiled as he transmitted the message, his eyes falling on the thousand bamboo sword Lei Yuan, red-eyed fairy Luo Zhen, and Snow Kai sword Feng Jiang who were standing aside. Strictly speaking, the three of them were all bad guests from other states, the people Hao Shangxing wanted to intimidate with the help of Zhao Chen. As for Feng Daoan, the head constable of the 6 gates with the gold seal, although he was invited by Lei Yuan, he was actually just there by chance, and his main focus was still on finding his missing daughter. On the other side, red-eyed fairy Luo Zhen also quietly transmitted the message to Lei Yuan, Brother Lei, should we still go ahead and find that Qinsheng to interrogate Mingai as planned? Lei Yuan frowned, thought for a long time, sighed, and responded, although Qinsheng is very likely a member of the Bei family, and it is very likely that she wants to use the magic to test the strength of Oling Castle, by driving away the blood godson who has occupied Mingai's apostrophe body, we should act in a high-profile manner. But it is not appropriate to act rashly at this moment. After all, judging from the battle just now, she and I should be on par with each other. If that young Master Zhao Chen favors her, then we will not be able to achieve the effect of establishing authority by interrogating him, but will instead bring humiliation upon ourselves. In fact, there is no if. Looking at their intimacy, young Master Zhao Chen will 100% favor her. This means that Fairy Duan, Fairy Tang, and even Fairy Zheng will be our enemies. It is better to find another opportunity. Although Lei Yuan did not say everything in his heart, Luo Zhen, as his junior sister, guessed most of his thoughts, and could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. It would be best if the senior brother could figure it out. She didn't want to have an enemy relationship with a top-grade supernatural power person. Is there any news from Lin Feng and Chu Yunmo? Lei Yuan asked again at this time. Luo Zhen shook his head gently and replied, no. It seems that the monster didn't take the bait. Although I didn't hold much hope, it's still a pity. Lei Yuan sighed slightly and didn't plan to stay any longer. After bidding farewell to Feng Jinzhang and others, he took his junior sister away from the territory of Yicheng. It was as if they were impressed by the power of Zhao Chen and gave up expanding to the human area. At least Hao Shangxing and others thought so. Of course, this was also in Lei Yuan's calculations. In fact, after the disappearance of the only Dongsuan real person in the sect, most of the supernatural power cultivators in Ling Castle had already rushed to An'ai and were unable to expand at all. He did this to cover up the current weakness of Ling Castle. If Qinsheng could be suppressed forcefully and forced to tell the whereabouts of Mingyu, the effect would be better, but unfortunately, after the two people from Ling Fort left, Feng Jiang looked at Hao Shangxing, raised the corner of his mouth and said, once Ling Fort retreats, the other forces will be able to calm down. Congratulations to Senior Hao for getting what he wished for. It's just to reduce the losses. Hao Shangxing smiled bitterly, without much joy. He just felt that he had spent too much energy and calculations for these petty things, which had long violated the original intention of practicing. But my hope of going further is slim. So I can only settle for the second best and strive for a better starting point for future generations. Hao Shangxing knew that he was old and had insufficient foundation. If he wanted to be promoted to Dongsuan, he could only dream of the legendary reincarnation secret treasure. But such things are too rare, and it is impossible for him to get them. At this time, Li Fuan on the side interrupted and said, it seems that Mr. Chen has no intention of inviting us to Wu'ai Valley. In this case, let's disperse. Anyway, your goal has been achieved, old Hao. And we still have to stay in Newman County. Hao Shangxing nodded when he heard it, and then he let out a long breath, bowed to Feng Jiang and Feng Daoan and said, see you two later. After that, he and Li Fuan set up the magic weapon, turned into a light, and disappeared. Only Feng Daoan and Feng Jiang were left in the pavilion. As they had no friendship, Feng Daoan remembered the voice transmission he had just received and was worried about his daughter's safety, so he only took a deep look at Feng Jiang and flew away from the pavilion with his sword. Feng Jiang pretended not to notice, and while looking at the Wuya Valley market hundreds of miles away, which was shrouded by a large formation, he thought to himself, there is obviously no Dongsuan real person there, but why do I feel a little bit of danger? He narrowed his eyes, and then his body shape suddenly changed, from a middle-aged man in a brocade robe and a jade belt to a beautiful woman in a white palace dress, with skin as white as snow and a dignified manner. It was the supreme elder of the Feng family in Ningzhou, Flying Snow Fairy Feng King. The lifeplate of Feng 1 has shown signs of life again. Could it be that this young man named Zhao Chen saved her? It's a pity that this man is a husband chosen by the dragon girl to help her overcome the tribulation. We can't move lightly before we are sure of his identity. In addition, the head constable Feng Daoan of the Six Gates seems to be no ordinary man. Although the sense is very weak, there is a precious light on his body, so he must be hiding a magic weapon. Well, it is said that the Six Gates has the magic weapon Zhijian, which can distinguish the true from the false, the loyal from the treacherous. Maybe it is a replica of that treasure. Because of this, I'm afraid that he has seen through my disguise. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.